vertical stream should be up. And then we're going to get Twitch going. Twitch is up. All right, then we'll get TikTok live. Let's see. How should we? Let's see. I'm just going to say God is evil on TikTok and see what we can get. I think it kind of encompasses some of the topics we're going to cover here
For
tonight.
sure. For sure.
But I think everything is live. Give me 1 second to double check our vertical channel to make sure the live feed is active over there, and then we should be ready to rock. And we are ready to rock. So, friends, welcome in. We've got a special Thursday night debate tonight. Typically, we don't do Thursdays, but I had a really special occasion. My friend John was able to join me this Thursday night. And so if you haven't, I know you guys heard me talk a little bit about John Cohen's channel, but if you haven't found his channel yet, I hope that you'll find it tonight. He actually happened to be with me here tonight. So if you want to see John in action, you're going to get it tonight. John, welcome in, bud.
Hey, how are you?
Doing really well, doing really well. Now, before we do too much, tell people a little bit about your channel and also about your book.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's really great to be here. Thank you so much for having me, as it were, in your house. So my channel really is about belief, and where I'm coming from is I want to legitimize non-belief because I think the idea of people being held morally accountable for what they find convincing is the dumbest idea we've ever come up with. And because it's so baked into the culture, because it's so baked into the kind of central core of Christianity and of Islam, we've kind of got numb to it. People don't stop and go, hang on a minute, that doesn't make any sense. You can't just decide to be convinced of something. And so this arrived in my head like a few years ago in the middle of a debate. Someone said to me, well, just choose to accept Jesus. And I realized that it wasn't that I didn't want to, it was that I wasn't able to. And it landed on me like a ton of bricks. I can't just decide to find something convincing if I don't find it convincing. And then I thought, I wonder if that applies to other things that I believe. And I kind of took a moment to examine myself and thought, yeah, actually, it applies to all my beliefs. And then I thought, it's not just me. This applies to everyone. And the moment I realized that is a universal thing about how all people believe, I thought, well, I have to do something with this. I can't just sit on this realization because it wasn't something that was really being said. I was watching Atheist Experience and all the things I have for years and years been into that. I just thought I have to do something with this. So I ended up writing a book about it, basically to make the case that belief is not a choice. You can't just decide to believe something on will. If you're not convinced of it, something has to convince you before the belief happens. And so I wrote it in a book and basically making the case that once we understand belief properly, then we can say, well, does it make moral sense to punish someone for something that they couldn't do differently? And of course, it doesn't make sense to do that. And so my book is called Unconvinced. And I thought I'm going to go online and start doing videos about it to support the book. And then actually, I realized that I love doing videos. I love doing live streams. I love engaging with people. And for me, that became more important than the book. And so now, like you, I've had watched these amazing communities build of people supporting each other through deconstruction. And really, I just want to legitimize non-belief. That's how I think about it.
That's good because there's a lot of people, and you and I have both talked to quite a few, where like they want to believe. You can see they're struggling. Like they're reading the Bible with us. They're talking about the topics, and you can tell that they really want to believe, but there's something in them that's like they're really they're not connecting all the dots. It doesn't always make sense to them, but they're trying so hard. And the reason, obviously, why it happens is because you can't force yourself to believe. You're either convinced or you're unconvinced.
That's it.
Uh,
That's it.
that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I get into these wild disagreements with people where I'll just say to them, like, you can't just decide to believe something. You can try. Like, you can control elements of the process. You can decide what you want to pay attention to. You can decide what you want to read, or who you want to listen to, or who you want to hang out with, or affiliate with, or how you want to identify yourself. All of those things are within your control. But the bit that isn't in your control is when it finally comes down to it and you're paying attention to the thing you've chosen to pay attention to. The one part of the process you don't get to control is the most important part, which is whether your mind finds it convincing or not.
Right.
And people will fight tooth and claw to hold on to the idea that you are accountable for your beliefs because the moral logic of religion collapses once you realize that you're not.
Indeed. Also, and before we get started, if you, I don't know if you have your phone on you, if you could log in to TikTok and join up as a guest on our TikTok live stream, that'll let people know that you and I are both live here together.
I
And
can
then
do that.
I'll accept you in as a guest. Actually, I just wanted to give an excuse to cook you while you're up on my TikTok channel. Not just,
I see you there,
but
and I'm gonna.
to the
So
point
just
too,
request
like,
in, right?
yeah, just request it and I'll pop you into the box and we'll do the thing. There we go. And then
Great. Join.
there we go. We should be good to go. Now people should see that you and I are live together on TikTok. But like
Awesome.
the being convinced part is it's so easy to ascertain because like listen, I can give you all the facts. Like for example, flat earthers. You can give flat earthers every fact imaginable about why the earth isn't flat. And they'll still be, oh, I'm not convinced. So it certainly isn't a thing that you can just decide to be convinced or not be convinced by. Sometimes people are really resistant to information, whether the information is good or not, because like they've either been primed or pre-programmed, or maybe they were
Yeah.
burned by somebody in the past, and now they'll never trust the government again. There's so many things that feed into what we believe and why we believe it. It seems like asinine that a deity would be like, well, you didn't believe the right things, so now I gotta light you on fire for all of eternity.
Forever. Yeah, right. And then you bring in the divine hiddenness problem of not only is this God going to light you on fire forever for not believing the right things, but they're also going to conspicuously hide every trace of themselves. You know, if a God wanted to make themselves completely invisible, this is what it would look like. So it's a complete setup, of course. The idea that this God just doesn't give anybody any signs of his or her existence, and then at the end of your life fries you for not having found them. It's ludicrous.
It's pretty wild. Well, before we get too much further, friends, we are going to be doing debates tonight. If you want to call in and you're not on TikTok, use the link on the screen, tiny.cc/DZ live. If you are on TikTok, you actually don't have to use this call-in link. This call-in link is, in fact, I'll move it up here. This is really only for people watching on YouTube. If you're on TikTok, you can request up using the typical method. You don't have to do anything special. You just hit that guest request button and we'll get you into the conversation. If you're watching on YouTube, we don't need your email. We don't need your account for anything. Just use the link on the screen, tiny.cc/DZ live. It's also clickable in the description and we'll be able to get you into the conversation and we can talk about the topics on the board, or if you want to, we can talk about something that even isn't on the board. These are more or less conversation starters. They're not strict suggestions. And with that, I think we might have one guest in the box. We've got 2 super chats. Let me grab our super chats and we'll get Secure Protect in here. Cruisin, thank you for the super chat. Says igneous, metamorphic, and sedimentary. The real Holy Trinity. Doug is God. Praise his hardness. Yes, Brent, diamond hard for Doug, y'all. Diamond hard. And also from Sean says, John Cohen, the prime and proper Brit, eats bananas with a knife and fork. Crazy.
That's Sean, who's actually my co-host on my live.
Okay.
Sean is a formidable mind and an absolutely amazing guy. So thank you, Sean. I do not eat bananas with a knife or fork, I assure you.
That's good to know. That's good to know. Well, let's grab, I think Secure Protect was first in line, and then Interfacing Meatball was coming in after that. So let's get Secure up in here. Welcome in, Secure.
Hello.
Are you at least 18?
I am. And I'm a security officer, been one for many years. And so, as the first thing, I would like to just ask both of you, and maybe in the chat as well, to quickly thank me for my service, for my many years being a security officer, protecting people, protecting property, protecting lives. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah, we're not going to do that, but we are going to bring up Interfacing Meatball, who is a real human being and not a troll, and have a conversation. I've actually spoke with Meatball, so Meatball, welcome back.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, you're up, buddy. Hey, Meatball, we've talked before. I already know that you're over 18, so I won't ask you if you're over 18, but I will ask you whether or not you still believe in God.
I do.
Sure. And is it still the Christian God?
It's God, yes.
So the Christian God, but you just You just say God to be concise?
I've looked a good bit into other religions. I think that sometimes inside of Eastern religions, we know that Asia has been like one of the most advanced countries, so I think there might be some truths side of Hinduism or Buddhism or early on religions like that that are still structured
Sure.
and still practiced. But I
Well,
see main truth inside Christianity.
I do think there are some truths in Buddhism, but we've got some suggestions on the board for conversation starters tonight. Is there one that tickles your fancy?
Give me a second to finish reading them. All right. Original sin is unjust. Or original sin in is that say I don't know exactly what you're trying to say there, but I would disagree with
So,
that.
do you, I guess I should ask, do you believe in original sin? And do you, when we say original sin, do we agree original sin is basically this idea that all humankind is tainted by the sin of Adam and Eve?
Yeah, I
Sure.
I agree in that.
Gotcha. Okay, so we're good to go there. So I think the claim on the board is pretty clear, which is original sin is unjust. And John has done quite a bit of work on this topic. John, if you want to maybe give some bullet points on why you think this might be the case, and we can interface with Meatball here.
Yeah, for sure. So I think there's a moral principle here which most people understand intuitively, which is that it's not okay to punish people who didn't do a crime for a crime that someone else did. Would you agree that that's a good thing to just to hold by?
So I would say that the Bible says we are, in a sense, responsible for our parents' transgressions or iniquities, as in they are passed down, in a sense. And so I would say it is pretty unjust to be handing out judgment unless it is a fair scenario.
Right. But imagine if your great grandfather committed a crime, would it be okay for you to be sent to prison for that crime or get the death penalty or something like that?
In my view, no. In a
Right.
lot of cultures, yes.
Okay, but the fact that cultures do it isn't a sign that it's a just thing, because lots of cultures do all sorts of crazy things that we wouldn't necessarily approve of. So the idea is you have these people in a garden, right? In a garden that supposedly existed a few thousand years after the Egyptians developed ceramic glazing, but never mind about that. So in this garden, you have a tree with fruit on it, in which God has encoded all this valuable information, knowing
Yep.
that his creations were going to have some of it, right? When he turned away, he knew all of this was going to happen. And so they do this. They go against what he'd said, not knowing that it was wrong to go against what he'd said, because they didn't know yet about God and good and evil, right? And then he
Yeah.
then he comes back and he's awfully upset about all of this. And rather than punishing them, he enacts a punishment on billions of other people and animals, because apparently we're given to believe there was no death before this happened. So suddenly death enters the world, right? Whereas
Yeah.
previously all the lions and great white sharks had all been vegetarians, from this point on, immediately their digestive systems are reconfigured to eat meat and kill other animals, and disease and death and suffering enter the world. Why is that? Why does that strike you as fair or good? Why not just punish the people who did the crime rather than inflicting enormous amounts of pain on billions of others?
I hear you, and your points are somewhat valid. But in my opinion, a lot of scholars and I view the story of Adam and Eve as more a symbolic story. We see also in the book of Revelation, it ties back to the tree of knowledge, which we know is also found in the garden. So I see the garden as a heavenly spiritual story of man's fall, how we fell from heaven, how we fell from God's order, which God's order is love. So, how we chose the opposite of love, and that's what brings death. We know that life is love. When we first come into life, our mother conceives us, she gives first action of love, and we feel love when we first come into life. It's one of the realest truths that there is. So, with that, when we lose love, that is death. So, when we lost God and we lost love, that's when we fell from the garden, and then that's That's basically the premise of it. But we go back to the garden after the revelation.
But even if you allow for some of this stuff being symbolic and not literal, it's still the case that the principle here is one of collective punishment of innocent people for the crimes of other people. And once we've
So
established that principle is unpalatable and not morally sound, it should apply universally. Why are you making an
yeah.
exception for God in this instance?
So God, in my opinion, is the universal standard, number one. Number two, Psalm 51 dot dot 5. Surely I was sinful at birth, sinful from the time my mother conceived me. So this is stating that we are just naturally sinful. That is the idea of original sin. It's that we just have a little bit, we become pretty corrupted. We live in a corrupted world. That's very obvious. So with that,
Yeah.
with time, we become corrupted. That's
Could
that's
God have
not
configured the world? Could God have configured the world differently so that people weren't born corrupted and broken like that?
that was the story of Adam and Eve, and we know that
But could he have
Adam
done it
and
differently
Eve.
though? But could he have done it differently?
That would mean that we would not be conscious, we would not be choosing choice, and no, it would
Could
not
he
be
have
free.
done it differently in such a way that we still had free will?
I don't think it would truly be free, but yes, in a sense, he
Do
could do it
people do
to
people
where
in heaven have free will?
in heaven, you already in after death, you don't make any more choices. You make your choices in life. So if you choose
You
love in
don't have free
life,
will in
and then you
heaven?
get to heaven, all you know is love. So you're not going to make any bad choices.
But if you can, but if you can exist in heaven still having free will but not making bad choices, then why not just configure Earth like that, and no one would have to get nailed to anything?
Because that's the beauty of life. We get to make choices, we get to live this life. In life, I think if it was just spirits, I think that just is like the physical also adds a lot of purpose in life. It gives like I'm not saying I feel like the purpose of life is spiritualism, but materialism has its purposes too.
That's lovely, but there's a problem in what you're saying. Is you've granted that people in heaven can still be free and make choices and be free agents and have free will. They're just not inclined to sin. They're not inclined to make the bad choices for
Yeah,
whatever theological reasons you want to insert there. Well, that means
because
that God
because
is capable of creating an environment where people are free agents with free will, free to love, free to be whoever they want, and disinclined to sin. So why not just configure Earth like that in the first place, and we wouldn't have had all of
so
these problems? It seems like he
so
he screwed it up.
because the book of Revelation actually gives an answer to this. We see that in the seventh seal, all the people who are under asleep under the temple in the fifth seal, they all are being rewarded for their actions on earth, while everyone else is being punished with the seven bowls and the seven trumpets, and then they are being rewarded. It's because when you get to heaven, God satisfies all your needs. It says God will give you all the desires of your heart in the book of Psalms too. So with that, heaven, you're satisfied. You don't need anything else. You could still fall just as Satan did, but you won't because Satan's temptations aren't there anymore. It's just God.
That that's delightful. Do you think that answers the question I asked about why God didn't just configure reality like that
Because
from the beginning?
you wouldn't have free choice if there's only the choice of God and there's no knowledge of good or evil. There's no choice to eat from the tree. There's just no free.
Right.
And
So
God
God is
likes
not
freedom.
powerful
God is
enough. He's
good.
not powerful enough to create a world where beings have free choice, but they're disinclined to sin. You're saying
No,
he's not powerful enough to do that.
I think the way you premise it is very biased. I would say that he is good, too good, to make it so that we all are completely robotic and only abide by his will. We have
No
choices
one has
to
to
choose
be.
our
No one
own
has to
will.
be robotic. Like, do you
But
know
if
that
we could
human beings
only
have
choose his
instincts, right?
will, that's
Do,
animals have
do you know
instinct that
human beings don't eat their own kids, for example, right? Very, very, very rare for human beings to eat their own children because
Epstein does.
we have a very strong instinct not to eat our own offspring. And this is common throughout the animal kingdom, certainly through the mammal kingdom. You don't find animals immediately eating their own young, right? And that's not because they're robots, and it's not because their free will has been constrained. It's because they have instincts which just turn them away from that, in the same way that we're turned away from certain smells. Cats don't like citrus. Human beings
Of
don't like
course,
certain smells and certain
of
things.
course.
God could have just made us fully equipped with a full suite of delightful free will, able to love whoever we wanted, very much not robots, but still just disinclined to sin. But he just
I would
chose not to do
disagree.
that.
That's the beauty of the story of Adam and Eve. It's that we have choice, and it's that in the beauty of it, God made animals, but then God made man in his image. He made female for man, but with that, female listened to the devil, and then Adam listened to the female, and they both fell. And that ultimately led to death, and that ultimately led to the it's like it's the mystery of love. That's really the question in life, and it's like
The mystery of
it's
love, or just the incoherence of that nonsense story.
it's not a nonsense story. It's a completely coherent story with a good timeline, and it's a
Right.
good explanation to a group of slaves who didn't have science and who didn't know about astrology and about all of this. They I think it's a very very good story. We know that understanding knowledge all derives from the words. If we didn't have the word know, we could not know anything. With that, to say that everything came from his word, it's understandable in my opinion.
Yeah, it just looks like a crazy story to me, because he's either, you have to choose, he's either morally broken because he decided to bring an avoidable amount of suffering, in unimaginable quantity of avoidable suffering, into the world, or he's incompetent because he just couldn't figure out a better way to get his plan done than doing that. So he's either like, a terrible tyrant, or he's basically a celestial Mr. Bean.
Okay, so hear me out. God, like you just suffering is what gives darkness, is what makes the light shine through. That's what
We
gives
can't
us the
appreciate
ability to
sunset if we don't
shine.
have cancer
So
wards, of course.
in a mind that is not focused on God, that is darkness. And when we do not let God in, things go bump in the dark. With that, we know that we know that that's where evil begins. When we are not focused on God, and we lose
Right.
God, and we eat from the tree of good and evil, and we start listening to Satan, that's where temptation begins.
I don't feel like that
So in
addressed
my
anything
opinion,
John
I
was
don't.
saying.
You're,
I've no,
you're
I
saying
mean,
you're
it's a
saying that
great
you're
sermon,
saying
but that has nothing to do with the
you're
topic.
saying you're saying that it's unfair, and by universal standard, God is the universal standard. God allowed us to have
No,
the
no, no. He
freedom
didn't.
to make
He didn't.
choices,
He
and
say
suffering is
he's
what
saying
makes
based on the
pleasure so
definition,
pleasurable.
based on like what the definition of being just is, right? If just is the idea that a situation has fairness to it, right? Then you can't then say, well, it's just when God does it, but when somebody else does it, it's unjust, right? Either the definition of just means that it's a fair situation pertaining to all people, or it doesn't, right?
I agree, but now we're arguing about morals.
Nope,
Morals,
nope,
you're stating
nope,
fairness, you're saying
nope,
all these
nope,
that ties into morals.
nope. We're
That
not
tie
talking about
fair.
morals. No, we're not.
If you're saying that
We're
fairness,
not talking
it
to.
applies to
We're
morals.
talking
It
about
does.
justice, right? Does justice have a definition?
Justice, judgment. Yes, I agree.
Right. What
But
does it
we
mean?
know, what justice means.
Yeah.
Justice means something that is like you want something that is fair.
Yeah, something you're getting
Yeah,
equitable treatment, right? So
exactly. To
does does equitable treatment depend on the authority of the person giving you the treatment? Like if the president steals my car, is it somehow okay, rather than like some vagabond stealing my car?
I mean, we know that if the president stole your car, he probably wouldn't get inside trouble. So,
But I'm asking
it's
though, based on the word justice, would it be just if a powerful person stole my car without just reason, like needing to, I don't know, what escape a violent mob or something? If he just wanted my car and stole it, is that somehow more or less just than somebody else who doesn't have status?
so you're stating objectivity to
Nope.
justice and fairness.
Just
It
answer the
you're
question.
that
Just answer the question.
I am okay.
Nope. It just
With
needs a yes or no.
it and no.
Gotcha. Okay. So if fairness, right, in a situation, if fairness isn't dependent on like the authority and status of the individual, then we can't say that it would be bad for me to do it, but it'd be good for God to do it, because now you're just special pleading and you're saying that justice has two different applications and they're actually kind of contradictory.
I would say that morals and fairness and justice, all those things, they derive from God. They derive from love. They
Right,
derive from our
but we're not
understanding
we're
of
not
our
asking
God.
about that. Great, justice comes from God. We're not questioning that. We're questioning what the definition of just is, right? So if the definition of just entails that you're being treated fairly in whatever the situation is, then John's completely right. It would be unjust for somebody to have been saddled with original sin, especially Psalm 51, where it talks about like literally from birth, like you're sinful from birth. I didn't ask for that. John didn't ask for that, right? So the fact that we're saddled with this sin nature, having never done anything, and then we get punished for it, like if we don't believe in the sky carcass, that's an unjust situation. I don't see how anything you've said addresses John's point yet.
Okay, inside of my opinion, it's hold on, I'm thinking.
Take your time. There's
What
no
did
rush. Don't
what did you say at the
don't.
end there again?
I said
I,
my
I
point is
lost
this:
my train of thought.
if we're born sinful from nature, sinful from birth, because we have the sin nature, right? Well, that's not a just situation. I didn't ask for the sin nature. I didn't do anything to deserve the sin nature. This original sin that caused me to be born already sinful isn't something that I did. It's something that God
Okay,
placed upon me. And then because I have that sin nature, that means eventually I'm going to sin. And when
yeah,
I
okay.
sin, God's going to light me on fire, which is, again, unjust. I'm just doing the thing that He designed me to do.
I hear you. So I believe number one, God is a fair God. So he's not going to go lighting people on fire if they truly don't have true knowledge, they don't have true understanding, and they don't if you love is the main thing about the Bible. If someone knows love, I believe that they have the ability to be saved. With that too, sin comes from a corrupt world that we live in. We know that
Wait,
there's a lot of corrupt.
I feel
You
like
might
you,
not be
I
you
feel like
hold
you
on,
might have.
listen.
I don't want to interrupt you. But I feel like you said something that is contradictory to your position. I don't want you to get too far ahead of it, because we're
Okay.
going to have to come right back to it, right?
We all
Okay.
heard it.
Yeah, everybody heard
Well,
it, right? So,
but
if you don't believe in Jesus, what happens to you?
you are not saved.
And then what happens to you?
You die. You
And
And
go
if
to
then
you're
hell.
if you're extra loving, if you're an extra loving person who loves everyone around them, love, a person full of love, sings songs of love, does love every day, but you just don't believe in Jesus, then what happens?
Truly, I can't say. It's up to God, and it has to be His
Well,
total interpretation of their
the
life.
the
I think
answer
that
is to be
I
found in
told
John
you.
3:18 if you look.
Hold on. I told you that there is a lot. I told you that I believe that there's truths inside of other religions too. I don't think that the only path of truth is Christianity. I just think it is the most structured and most obvious way and the most logical way that God would reveal Himself.
wait, do you
But
believe in hell?
that's a logical
Do
minefield
I
you're
believe in
walking
hell?
into there.
I believe hell is a place for evil, and then I believe death is something for not really evil, but maybe for those who do not know evil versus good. Hell is talked about in the book of Revelation multiple times, and it's said that Satan and his devils will be thrown into the pit, but death is also talked about a lot in the book.
Yeah, but I don't know if that addresses the problem. It sounds like you might not actually believe in like the gospel. Like you might not actually be a Christian. So
I do. I've read the whole thing.
the gospel is essentially that if you believe in Jesus, right? Romans 10:9 and 10, John 3:18, 16 through 18, right? If you believe in Jesus and you put your faith in Him and you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart, then you will be saved from the hellfire. But like,
I know.
if you don't believe that, you're not really a Christian. You're a God believer, sure, but you're not really a Christian. The whole shtick with
Okay.
Christianity is you have to put your faith in Jesus to get saved from
I hear you.
hellfire.
I hear you. The good thing about the time we live in is that most people are able to hear about it. But with that, we hear all the time people ask questions like, what about the people who aren't able to hear about Christ? Well, they
Hmm.
still have knowledge on love. That's how religion, in my opinion, began because we were able to see love. So
Do
with
you,
that, if you know love, that is what Jesus claims to be. John,
but
what?
But do you think that
Jesus.
hearing about Jesus is the same thing as believing in Jesus? Because what if you've heard about Jesus, but you just don't find it convincing?
I think if you've heard about him, then there's a lot more place for conviction towards you from God than someone who hasn't heard about him. So
Right,
you're on a very
exactly.
higher standard
Yeah.
of judgment.
This is called lifting up the stone and seeing all the slime underneath it. You've just said the quiet part out loud. If you don't believe in God, there's room for a lot more conviction against you, is what you just said.
No. I said if you do know
Yeah,
about it.
if you've heard about Jesus, but you just happen not to believe it, then there's room for a lot more conviction against you. Why? What if you've just heard
Because
about Jesus and you've heard about 1,000 other faith claims as well, and you just find them
because
all equally unconvincing?
we know that morals are based on love. Jesus claims to be love, and
Wait, you mean
the mystery of consciousness and love are the two greatest questions in life,
like
and Jesus answers those.
I feel like you're confusing Jesus for Yahweh. Paul says in 1 Corinthians that God is love. He didn't say that Jesus is love. But sorry, John was going to say something. I just want to make sure
Yeshua and Yahweh are the same.
we'll address that next. Go ahead, John.
Even if that's true, you have to admit that it's possible to hear about Jesus and that doesn't automatically translate into being convinced it's true. What if the person you
Of
heard about it
course,
from could barely string a sentence together and was a really poor evangelist? What if someone just knocked on your door one day and said, "Hey, I've come to tell you about Jesus," and hands you a badly written pamphlet and walks away? Is that piece of paper capable of determining rather your eternal fate? Because now you've heard about it,
it's
you've read the crappy
never about
pamphlet.
the piece. It's never about the piece of paper, though.
Right.
It's never about your actions. It's always about God. It's about God's will, God's salvation, and that's what the whole Bible teaches. And
Well,
so
that's
it's
lovely, but you
mainly
have to be convinced of that in order
God
for
is
it to mean
fair
anything
and
or
loving.
count. That's just your
I
claim.
am
That's just you
convinced.
repeating your religious claim.
I've always been convinced since I was very little. I've went down different religious paths, but I've known people who have not been convinced, and they still aren't, and I've grown up with them. And in my opinion, it's like you can either see the love in life, or you could ignore the truth and the love in life, or
No,
you could
What are
because
just
we
you're
talking
completely
about?
equivocating
submit
there.
to
You're
the hate and
equivocating
the
on the word
evil.
love. You can't do that. I can't let you do that. You're saying
What?
if you don't see Jesus, you can't see love. And if you see love in the world, that equates to believing in Jesus. It's possible to see love in the
Exactly.
world and not believe in Jesus.
I know if you
And
don't know about
has
Jesus, but Jesus
even if
claims
you
to be
do know
love.
about Jesus, hey, I know about Jesus and I see
I
love in
know.
the world, but I just don't believe in Jesus.
But Jesus gives the perfect definition of what love is. He gives the perfect standard and the perfect example too.
He
And
can't.
he shows that God is love and God is the perfect Father. So
He doesn't do any of
it's
that if he sends you to hell for not believing in him.
but he does it says hell is for Satan and the devils and for evil. Okay?
No,
Not for everyone.
and and maybe this is my fault for not reading the passage sooner, and for assuming that Christians have read the passages. That's on me. I can put it on the screen for you, and we'll read it together, and then you can
21:8.
tell me. Yeah, Matthew 25 is what I was going right quick.
Right.
And we can talk about, hey, whether or not human beings are going to this hell place that the demons and angels are going to, right? So in
I know
Matthew
that some humans
25,
are. I know some
I
humans
know.
are.
Matthew
I'm just
25,
saying
it says,
all
when the Son
are.
of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on the throne of his glory, and all the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people from one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from goats. Great. So we got this separation of the people, and then we've got the judgment. Then in verse 41, it says, he will say to those on his left hand, you who are accursed, depart from me into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. So it doesn't really matter who the fire was prepared for. Jesus is going to send you there. Like the origination of
If you
it's not
follow
really
the
all that
devil,
relevant.
yeah, I agree. If you follow the devil and you don't follow God, you don't
So
follow
not
love. You
believing
don't
something
follow
is following the
truth.
devil.
The love is the
So
biggest truth in life.
John is a very loving individual. So like if he just doesn't believe in Jesus, why does him not
But
believing in
that's the
Jesus?
thing. John
Why is
also
why is that
received.
evil?
John was told, "You are my most loved disciple." He was also the one who received the revelation, and the
So what?
revelation also shows that I don't
Different
think
John.
okay, it talks about inside that quote like there's sheep And then there's also wolves, the ones who
No,
pick on the
but
sheep, and the
just pay
ones who
attention. My
deceive you. Those are
question
the ones
was,
who go to hell.
I think my question went unheard, right? My question is, John is a perfectly loving individual, this guy next to me. If he just
Oh, okay.
simply
Okay,
cannot
got
be
that, John.
convinced, sorry, yeah, Jon, right? Not
Okay.
Yohanin, like the Greek John. If he just can't be convinced of the Jesus nonsense, why is that evil?
It's not evil, but he's also not sacrificing to a objective moral sense of good or evil. With
So
that, he is putting himself at the subjective center of the world, but I think
what
the world's a
what
lot
is
more
that?
objective.
What is the objective center or the subjective center of the world? Listen, John is doing the same stuff you're
He's
doing.
putting himself at
John's
that.
loving his family. He's taking care of his friends. He's doing all the same thing Christians are
I
doing.
know.
What
And
is
I
what
don't
is
think that, John,
believing in a mythology have to do with being a good person?
because it's not a mythology. Number one, it is a truth book. It is the
Well,
biggest truth.
that's not true.
It
And you know that
spiritualism.
interfacing meatball. You and I have
I
already had two
disagree.
different
I feel like
discussions,
everyone knows
and I
God
showed
is
you
true,
all the lies in the
but
book already, so you should know better.
I've debated tons of people about these lies. The chewing cud and stupid stuff like the mustard seed not being the smallest
I
seed.
didn't say anything
It's
about mustard seeds.
it's I know, but all that's stupid because number
I
one
agree
is
the
usually
mustard
talking in
seed
some symbolic talk,
issue is stupid. That's why I don't use it.
and same with the chewing cud because
No,
other
that's not
people
stupid
Ar-
because rock badgers don't chew cud.
Aristotle wrote that rabbits chewed cud too. It was a
I
normal
didn't
thing
say
for
anything
beasts
about
to
rabbits. I
before
said
men.
rock badgers. And it doesn't matter
Okay,
if Aristotle wrote it. In fact, people wrote that rabbits chewed cud even in the medieval period. And the reasons why
and
they
so
wrote about rabbits
the whole
chewing
book of
cud even
Genesis.
into the medieval period is because it looked like they were chewing cud, but they weren't actually chewing cud. It just had a similar mouth motion. And the same thing with the rock badger. But the difference is that the rock badger simply did not chew cud, nor does it re-chew its own feces. It doesn't
The
fall
whole
into either of those categories.
And
the book
Aristotle
of
is not
Genesis,
universally
the book of
is not
Genesis does
universally
not
credited
literally
for having
state out
designed rock badgers.
the book of Genesis does not literally state out how the universe was designed.
That's
Instead,
Leviticus.
it gives a simple interpretation of how the world was created. It gives
Where does audio
for
go?
a simple people from a simple time to understand. The Bible is not a science book, it is a spiritual book. It is not meant to have truth in fact, it's meant to have truth in faith. That is, truth is found in faith, in love,
I got him.
all the time inside of relationships. If you don't have trust in a
So
relationship,
interfacing, I didn't hear anything you just said because I
love.
accidentally hit my my silent key on my keyboard when I was typing. Can you restate that? We
Okay.
left off on rock badgers, which, to be fair, I didn't bring up. You brought up.
Yeah, I know. Okay, the Bible is not a book of facts. It is not a science book. It is
But
a truth book based in
is it
spiritualism
true when
and
it says that
belief.
rock badgers chew cud?
It's not a science book. No,
But
it
is
is
it
not.
true?
It's not true. Is it true that God is love?
Okay, so
Yes.
well, that's not true either. We can touch on that in a second. The reality is, if the Bible just says something that's untrue, no matter what the untrue thing is, then we can't just then say the Bible is a book of truth. You can say there's some true things in the Bible, and I would agree with you. I think there are some true things in the Bible, but you can't just then universally say that the Bible is true when there are things in it that we know are not true.
I personally have been to the hospital twice and medically been deceased twice,
So
and
have I.
I've went through death. And the
So have
first
I.
time, I can tell you, it's scary, and you
It
do
is.
meet God, and God
Nope.
is real.
Didn't
and
meet
it's
God.
it's more. I twice in the hospital. It's happened more than that. Like
I'm sure it
I
has. It happens to all kinds of people, but it doesn't happen to everybody.
of course,
If it was
of
universal
course.
experience, it would happen to everybody. This is your
It's
mind
more.
playing
It
tricks
was.
on you because
Everyone
that's
has
what
their own
minds
subjective
do when
experiences,
it's
and
grasping
that's not true.
at
I
the
went to the
edge of
hospital
life.
twice, and the
And
heart machine
Meatball,
stopped
it
twice.
sounds like you're having trouble
Two
staying on
times.
topic, which
Yeah,
is
we've
which is
really
what we need
drifted
to.
away from where we were, and it's a shame because we were talking about something really important, Meatball. It would be good
I
if we could just clarify this. We were talking about whether it makes moral sense to punish someone purely for not being convinced of something. Now, you might be convinced of it. I grant that. You look at the Bible and you see a book of truths and you see all these wonderful, profound loving truths in this book. That's great. Hooray for you. I look at the Bible and I just see something else. I see a book of myths. I see a book that has some beautiful poetry in it and some absolutely disgusting moral preachments that anyone should be ashamed to hold under their arm. It's full of brutality, misogyny, violence, indiscriminate killing, collective punishment, and horrific moral logic. But even if that were not the case, even if it was beautiful all the way through and morally perfect, I just don't find it convincing. I can try, but I just don't. Right? So if I don't find it convincing, what am I supposed to do about it? If I don't find it convincing, and if believing it is the only path to not being set on fire, what would be your advice to someone who just doesn't find it convincing?
Just find God. Get right with God. Find your
That's
purpose.
very easy to say.
Spirit,
that's very easy to say, but there are people who've been
yourself.
trying to do that for 40 or 50 years.
Okay.
Like,
Right.
you can't, Meatball, if John said to you, if you don't believe in the tooth fairy, you're going to go to tooth fairy hell, and you certainly don't want that, because you'll be in tooth fairy hell for eternity with no teeth and nothing to eat but corn on the cob. And the only way to get out of that is to believe in the tooth fairy, floss twice a day, and brush 3 times a day. And you're like, listen, I can brush and floss, but I can't actually believe in the tooth fairy. You don't think that it would be fair for you to go to tooth fairy hell just because you couldn't bring yourself to be convinced of the tooth fairy, do you?
The difference that I see, like the tooth fairy thing,
Nope.
I don't see it as a good analogy.
I didn't ask you if it's analogous yet. I'm asking you right now if it would be fair to me to tell you that you're going to go to hell if you don't believe in the tooth fairy.
If you see that as your subjective view and you see that as fair,
I'm
then
asking you if it's fair. If is it
no.
fair?
In my opinion, no.
If
In
you
my opinion,
great, we agree. In all of our opinion, no, because there's no actual evidence for the tooth fairy. There's nothing to be convinced by,
there
and even
is
if there was
evidence
Meatball, hold
for
on.
God.
Even if there was evidence doesn't guarantee that it's going to be convincing to everybody. So this is directly analogous to God. If there's no good evidence that's worthwhile to convince us of God's existence, we can't then turn and repent to God. We don't believe in the guy. So what that means is we can't force ourselves to believe in this thing.
Okay, I know that you can't force yourself to believe, but the biggest thing about it is that he just claims to be love. He claims love is the greatest commandment.
So did the tooth fairy.
It's that not the tooth fairy, because the tooth fairy
No,
is
the
just
tooth
the
fairy
tooth
did.
fairy, and that just takes your tooth. And
I can
that
read
just
you
gives
from the book of the Holy Tooth
one
Fairy.
is the root of all evil. Okay.
Yeah.
And with that, love, the opposite. Love is God, and if you have a different bias and you
And these are some
want to,
platitudes.
like I mean,
Yeah.
it's like
this is not answering. This is not dealing with the
there is
core
evidence-
issue
there
at all, which is
evidence
that you
for
cannot
God. There is
command
not
yourself
fact
to find
for
something
God,
convincing.
but truth is not always found in fact. Truth is found.
The
in
truth is
belief.
not found in facts. Holy shit.
In all of your
You heard it here.
relationships, you have to trust and find truth in your
That's
partner
crazy.
by trusting them.
I
and
believe
then
in
that's
trusting
what
your
leads to
partner.
your
I know
love.
partners exist, though.
Okay,
That's
and
amazing. You said a
cannot always
whole
see your
truckload of
partner.
words that
It's
had
so
no
much
meaning.
deeper with God.
So
Because you
the
can't
problem
see
you
God
have is like,
24/7.
listen, John right now is my partner on the stream. I know John exists. I can wave to him. Hey, John, wave back. See, we know that we exist, right? God isn't our partner. God is hiding somewhere. God has not given us any reason to believe that he exists. So God's not our partner. He's just a boogeyman hiding
I
somewhere.
would disagree. I don't think God is hidden. I think God
Then
is
what's the
very
evidence? What's the
clear
evidence
and
that God's real
visible.
then?
The Bible, all religions.
Oh no.
The
That can't be it.
Turin. We could go into a bunch of evidence.
But do we
I
notice
just
what
don't
happened
care
here?
to debate
Forgive me for
evidence, because I've
interjecting here, but do you know what
debated
just
it.
happened?
If you have a different
What just happened is
bias,
we
you
just
just wanna
shifted. Hang on.
debate.
Stop for a moment, people. We just shifted from a conversation about whether belief is voluntary and whether belief can be activated on command, like a light switch being turned on. We shifted from that
It
to
can.
is a belief in a particular claim warranted? That's a fascinating subject that we love talking about, but it's a completely different topic. The fact is, you are convinced by this evidence. We grant that. You personally find it convincing. Lots of other people find
Yes.
it convincing. That's fantastic for all of you.
Mhm.
But for Justin and for me and for billions of other people who just don't find it convincing, the reality is that as things stand right now, we're not convinced. That's the only fact you need to
Okay.
take on board. That fact has nothing to
And
do with
in
whether
my
you think it
opinion,
should
I
be
would
convincing.
disagree.
You just need to hear that it isn't.
Okay, I would disagree. 90% of scientists believe inside some form of spiritualism. Only 10% of scientists inside of the
It's irrelevant.
US
It's
are
irrelevant.
strictly atheist. Okay,
That's
so a
irrelevant.
What's he
majority of the
talking
world
about?
is not atheist. Spiritualism is a big
completely.
part of the world, and it's believed in by a lot of people.
No one
And
cares.
it
But this
does, it's
is
real.
completely
If you guys
irrelevant
don't
to
want
the
to believe
point.
in it, okay,
No,
that's cool. You guys
it's
can have
completely
your own
irrelevant to the
interpretation
point.
of life. That's the beauty of it.
I think you got triggered because I said billions or millions or something. I could have said 100 and the point would have remained. Let's just agree that there are some number of people. There are some people who just aren't convinced by the same things that you are. Do you grant that?
I do, and I understand why. I've been inside that position.
Okay, good. Okay, so having granted that, do you understand that for someone in that position, we can't just suddenly decide to start finding things convincing that we don't find convincing? Do you grant that?
Okay, 2 years ago, I talked to Justin. I was completely different. I did not know as much. I was not as knowledgeable, and I was a completely different person. Now I've grown a lot inside of my faith and inside my beliefs, and with that, it was all stemmed from my word and from believing that I could. If I just, if I
Buddy,
said
that doesn't
I
answer
believed
the
in Christ
question.
and I
Meatball,
prayed
this is
and
going
I
to be a
genuinely
painful
gave my
conversation
faith,
if you
it
can't
was
actually just pay
it.
attention to the questions that are being
I'm
asked.
answering it.
Like,
I'm answering it.
you're not answering a question. It required a yes or no, right?
Yes.
So if
Or-
you asked me, did you brush your teeth today? And then I gave you a paragraph answer that didn't include a yes or no, I didn't answer the question.
Okay.
So
Okay.
all we need
Okay.
is a yes or no to John's question.
Yes, you can believe in something by just your word. By
That's not
just
what he
By
your
just
asked.
mindset.
deciding to. So this is the crux of
Yes.
the issue.
Yes.
So
If
your
you decide to
contention,
believe in something.
is that you can just activate being persuaded by something just by wanting to. Do you realize what a ridiculous position that is?
That it's true.
Okay, well then
The
let's
people
test it right
believe
now. What I'd like you to do now is decide to stop believing in God right now.
I would
Just
rather not.
decide.
I've been down that
No,
route and I did not find it fun.
but you've made a claim, so evidence it for us. So I'd like you to now sincerely stop believing in God. You can start again
I
in a
would
few
like
minutes, but right
if
now, just
okay.
decide to stop believing.
Okay,
Have you
then
done that?
I don't think that I could. I don't think that I genuinely could. I've
Right,
always
because
grown up with a
you're
knowledge of
realizing that
God.
you're realizing that you can't,
Always.
because that isn't how belief works. Belief is the condition of being persuaded that something's true or likely true. It's not
I
something
don't
that can be
agree with the Catholic or
turned on and off.
Orthodox Church. Okay,
What
and I
the-
grew
what-
up inside the Catholic Church.
What are you
and at
talking
one point
about?
I went,
That's a wild
I
pivot.
went agnostic.
What planet
I
are
went
you on right
agnostic
now? Can
because
you
I was
answer
butthurt
what John's
because
talking about?
of
No one's asking about
because of religion.
your
I got
background with the
butthurt.
Catholic Church.
I'm just saying, it's like if you guys have a different bias, then I could not convince you of
Meatball, it's
anything
not a
because
bias.
Your beliefs are different. Your beliefs are different. So I think I've had enough time up here. I think they all should bring up a different guest. Genuinely, like my
Well,
beliefs, I believe in God,
fair
and you
enough.
cannot change that. I've been that way since a little
So
kid.
so you can't force yourself to not believe.
That's
Okay.
just
It does say in the
exactly what we're
Bible
talking
that
about.
God's children
That's
So
it.
are
thanks for
predestined.
demonstrating the validity of the
Have
claim.
a
You can't
blessed
force
night.
yourself to
God
believe
bless
something
everyone.
or not believe something.
Exactly.
Belief
You
is
said it.
based in yourself. Reality is based in yourself. Everything is based inside consciousness. End of the day, I hope you guys have a great night.
Yeah, have a good one, bud. Well, that was something.
He got there in the end. He got there in the end. It
He
was
did come
beautiful.
full circle.
It was poetry. I believe in this and I can't not believe it. That's the whole point.
Yeah, like it's weird that he would spend 5-10 minutes trying to deny that the validity of your claim, only to affirm it in the end by accident.
Right. Yeah, that happens quite a lot. Yeah.
Well, friends, we happen to have an empty guest box so far. The night is still young. I'm going to read some super chats. If y'all have questions for John, send them up. Super chat some questions to him. This is his first time getting to stream with me. I'm really excited to have him. If this is your first time seeing John, please visit the links in the description of the video. Check out his book, Unconvinced. And thanks for being here, friends. Let me get a super chat from our friend Helping Mega Deconstruct. Says, I can't believe I can have my favorite two creators on the same stream. Let's barbecue, Rock Hard for Doug, Simply Wet for Sharon, and Whores for Life. Who does love Puff the Magic Dragon? Listen, he lives by the sea, and he's a friend of me.
Did.
So Puff did more than Jesus ever could. And AR8, thank you for the super chat, says, oh, hell yeah, Justin and John, two of my faves. I knew this would be a crowd pleaser. I'm happy that this is working out, friends. And Shishi says, so excited about this duo. Well, thank you, Shishi. Why do so many people enjoy being manipulated? Mega religion, conspiracy theories, etc. It's so sad and dumb. It seems they actually like being taken advantage of. That is the case. Or maybe they've grown accustomed to the idea of like, well, there's nothing they could do about it. This is just the course of events, and we just have to sit back and take it. That certainly is something that happens. Also, I would point out, as we're going through some super chats, waiting for the guests to populate, I put John's YouTube channel in the link in the description, so make sure you drop by his YouTube channel and drop him a follow if you're not already following. And Tim says, Justin is fiery and John is cool as ice. This will be steamy. I like what you did there, Tim. And yes, actually, I believe that is the case. And Chip says,
Thanks.
Justin and John together at last. Can't wait for this twin barbecue. Let's fucking go. And I would say this, when I shave a little bit and like lose like 15 pounds, we do start to coalesce into a similar looking white person.
Yeah, when I put the poster up, I put a little poster up on my YouTube to kind of trail the thing, and a couple of people said, yeah, like your hair's different colors, but apart from that, you basically look very similar. So that's a compliment. I'm happy with that.
It's not bad at all. Not bad at all. And Amin Rod, thank you for the super chat, says, seeing John and Justin on the same live is worth $20. Better than paying for a movie. Listen, I love to hear that, Amin. Amin or Amin? You'll have to correct me, but I do enjoy a good movie every now and then, but I agree. I think this is a lot more fun. And Not the Bible, Jason, great to see you tonight. Says, finally proof, a meatball in the cult ready. Read the book of the cult, that an authority of early cult assigned a name from original cult to an anonymous person of the cult who wrote cult leader said, I am love. Welp, case closed. Fucking
yeah, that
nailed
was
it.
a pretty good. Was that an AI summation of the last call?
I think it was. Not the Bible, Jason does a pretty good job of putting the conversation into shorts for us. And Chodicus, thank you for the super chat, says, and what I'm frightened of is that they call it God's love. Yeah. Like, we didn't get a chance to talk about like the biblical form of love as it's laid out, but maybe we'll get the chance tonight while we're live still. Design, my friend, good to see you, says, I'm dying for a prompt. Sermon, scholarship, anything that purports to consider the conversation first had between God and Adam after he died and got to heaven. I think it'd be interesting. There are, I thought there was Talmudic writings on this, or at least at a minimum, some Kabbalistic writing. I can definitely check into that if someone sends me a message to remind me. There's a lot of like Adam and Eve, like Jewish pseudepigraphic text out there. Maybe even check the Charlesworth edition of the Jewish pseudepigraphic text. It's a 2-volume series. There should be some stuff in there. And Zen, good to see you tonight. Zen, thank you for the $20 super chat. Says, my greatest guru, how wonderful to see you and John together. Still love and appreciate you. Double dose of learning. Looking forward to Santa delivering me a copy of your book in 2026. Well, since you're here, get a copy of John's book, Unconvinced. There's a link to his website, and you should be able to get the book in the bio. I do recommend it. And last super chat for now from Daddy Todd says, a Celestial Mr. Bean is the name of my new band. I mean, I think it does work, doesn't it? All right, I think next in line is in our YouTube queue, and it looks like it's going to be, well, someone with a slightly inappropriate name. We'll see if this is going to be a serious person or not. Let's grab in Gub and hopefully have an appropriate conversation.
I love you.
Oh, I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you because you were really, really loud, and I had to mute you for a second so I can get your volume equalized.
Hello? Is this
I,
better?
yeah, I can hear you.
I just wanted to say I love you guys. I watch you both all the time. Have a good day.
Cheers, buddy.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Okay, well, hey, listen, we got some fans out there, and thanks for if you're out here and you're a fan, thank you for being a fan. We can only do what we do because of the audience members like you who share and like and support our streams. So let's get our next guest in here. It looks like the guest is named My Mom. So hopefully he's referring to his mom and not my mom. I guess we'll find out. How you doing, my mother?
How's it going, guys? I love both of you guys. I watch you guys all the time. Hours is it's insane how much I've watched. I just wanted to come on, say hi real quick. That was really it.
Certainly appreciate it. Thank you for that.
Thanks
Big
a lot.
W.
Thanks.
And I just wanted to say one thing I hear you guys talk about, but I never seen anybody like really go into it, which like part of that morality debate, which is like there's no morality without God. But literally the book says good people don't go to heaven, saved people do, which literally tells you you can be a good person without even believing in them.
Yeah, that is the
strikes me as
case.
crazy.
My pastor used to say that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, which is a horrific thing to think that you could have good intentions, you could be trying your best to do the right thing, and in the end, like, well, I guess you made the wrong decision. You didn't believe the right thing. I got to torture you forever now. Kind of a crazy thing to believe in.
Horrific.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you guys go over so many things, and I actually found John through you, Justin, from watching so many of your lives. And let me tell you, I love watching you, Justin, because you like knocked it out of the park for me. I had a religious background, grew up Christian, going to church like 3 times a week. Absolute madness. Been on Deconstruction for like a good maybe 5 years now, but I was still kind of in that area of believing in some type of a God. But now, especially after I watched John, that knocked it out. I couldn't.
Yeah.
The fact that you cannot choose your beliefs, that settled it.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Good for you.
Well,
good for you.
Best of luck to you. Thanks for dropping in. Thanks for watching and supporting the channel.
Always. Yeah, I'll be watching, guys. Thanks.
Cheers.
Thanks, man.
Friends, we love our audience, but we do have to politely ask not to bombard our guest box with friendlies. We are looking for people to debate. Everyone here is looking for a lively discussion. If we run out of things to talk about, we do have super chats we can go through, and I might hit a couple of super chats here in a minute. We do have one guest in the guest box, not Meek and Mild, who I'm showing is a friend of ours. Or at least a friend of mine. Let me see if this is a friendly or an opposition. Let's see. Maybe. They might be opposition. So let me grab our next guest, not Meek and Mild, and then we'll read a couple of super chats after that. Again, if you have questions for John, show them into the super chats. We'll read them. He'll answer them. And then actually, when we get through that, I have a question for John that he may or may not be expecting, but I think it'll be a treat for everybody. All right, so let's grab Meek and Mild. Well, technically not Meek and Mild. Yeah. How you doing, not Meek?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Should be what do you prefer to be called?
And you can call me Nora.
Nora. All right. Nora, can you turn it sounds like you've got like a speakerphone on and it's super loud and it's feeding.
Is that better? Is that better?
Yeah, it should be better. So that when you turn it up too loud, it feeds back into your microphone and it creates some weird stuff, but it should be good now. So, not Meek and Mild, are you at least 18? And is there some kind of a God that you believe in?
Yes, and yes.
Okay. And which kind of a God do you believe in?
So, I would call myself a Christian, or I have for almost 20 years. And I've been watching you for quite a while. We're friends.
I saw that.
Actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. I don't think this is like the best time, so it's kind of weird that I'm coming up now. I wish I was more well rested or something. But I actually also went to a Christian evangelical seminary, and I had to learn Greek and Hebrew, and I did all the, the stuff that you did. A real seminary, not like a fake one.
Not like
I won't say what.
like Pensacola Christian College or
No,
Peter
no, no.
Ruckman Basement Church.
No, a real one. I'm only not going to disclose it just because I try to keep my anonymity, but it is a real seminary.
Right.
If you Google, it's in the top 10 or 20, of the seminary. So anyway,
I believe you. I believe you.
But I was not raised Christian, actually. I was raised by like really smart atheists. And so I'm a critical thinker, and I always have been. But so I think when as I've listened to you, I've been like, oh, I want to debate this passage, and all the, a year, maybe even more than a year, I've been listening to you. And other deconstructionists, be flattered or not, you're the only one I still listen to. I don't like most of them. I like you. I don't like most of them because a lot of them are just, I don't know, rude. Yeah, they're rude. But you're respectable and respectful of people. And I mean, you get snarky sometimes, but it's reasonable, your snark. So anyway, I wanted to come up with a more fresh mind to debate scripture and the Hebrew and the Greek, but today that's not where I'm at. I wanted to talk to you about, so I went on a journey through scripture, having the kind of education that I'm sure you have a similar education about, you study the context, the literary, historical context, et cetera, and then, to know what the meaning is, right, of the words. So I decided to go on a journey because I was challenged by my life circumstances, based on them being terrible for quite a while, thinking, gosh, how can this be real, right? The loving God and all of that. And also just, especially it was like domestic violence and misogyny and patriarchy and all this stuff. That's my platform stuff. So I went through and I was like, okay, I'm going to see if God really is a misogynist, patriarchal, terrible God. And if so, I'm leaving. So I decided I was going to go through all the scriptures that were about women, about grape, around, all the good stuff, right, that we hear about. And I'm sure all of them from the deconstruction world. And if I find that God is truly a horrible, patriarchal, misogynistic prick, pardon my language, then I'm out, And what I found is that and I'm not going to get into it now, so I'll come back later because I'm too tired for this, but I haven't yet, I feel like I found defensible positions, ways you could look at, the passages based on historical context and nuances of the literary context that defend this view, and that the misogyny and patriarchy is read into the scriptures by the culture, which is that way, blah, blah, blah. We can discuss that another day. But what I wanted to say is that, so I was like, okay, cool, I can defend God, right, on all these different counts based on, literary and historical context, and the fact that misogyny and patriarchy are in all cultures, secular, religious, and the like. And we're just like that. We just like misogyny and patriarchy throughout history. So that aside, what I wanted to bring up actually today, because I'm too tired to talk about that, is the fact that I noticed all deconstructionists, or most of them, they don't like to talk about personal encounter, personal experience in their debates, because they say, well, it's very personal. You can't really prove it. You could be delusional, and I can't really access your personal experience. You can't access mine. So we can't really, debate it, which totally makes sense. But the problem is, I believe, like probably for most people who come up here, well, some people might be fundamentalists from their family or at birth or whatever, right? But most people come up, they've had or believe they've had some kind of personal experience with God that has sustained them through this, right? And so I find it hard to discount that, because I really believe that that's the root of most people's hanging on to it, right? Like they don't really hang on because of other reasons. And so the only thing I really have left, to be honest, even though I can defend it academically, if we could debate all those passages another day, is really the memory of a lot of truly significant, life-changing experiences that occurred that transformed not only the inside of me, but like outside, and my life, like, and things I'd never experienced any other way through prayer and response, I'll call it, through and through something very pragmatic. I am empirical in my thinking still, and very, very sort of critical as a thinker, but something very pragmatic, right? That prayer and response, being, intuitive guidance, all these kind of things that I didn't have. I didn't get it growing up. And until I saw it and kind of encountered something, right? I didn't have that. And so I think a lot of people really, that's the truth for them, but on social media, we don't talk about it. So I wanted to ask you, yeah, it could be a mass delusion. We could talk about the disciples and who really wrote this and is it valid and all that. But like that aside, how do we, like, I want to be able to talk about that, not my testimony and just like evangelize people, but just the idea of the personal experiences of people. And it doesn't even have to be Christian. Let's say Muslims and Christians and other theists are all having some shared thing and they think they're disagreeing. We go that route, right? But why, how do we, I don't know. I think it seems very real, right? And especially if there's positive fruits, because it was positive for me. Let's be real. Not Christians, let's be real there too. Not the church, not fundamentalists, because I've never really fit in there. But just that theistic kind of like that prayer and response life that involves a lot more in seeking of that and what feels like response, not just seeking, but prayer and response life has been a better life than the one I had before. Although now it's, my life has sucked for a while, so it's easy to question. So I guess I'm just asking you like about that and your take on that when really smart people, because I'm no dummy and I know a lot of smart people in academia who are theists, right? All have this. They're not all brainwashed at birth. They didn't all grow up in the Midwest, so no offense if you grew up in the Midwest. I'm just saying, like, how do you explain kind of like that piece of it?
So I don't know what John's answer would be. Mine's pretty short and concise. I rejected personal experience as evidence a long time ago, even when I was a Christian. And one of the reasons was when I was a young Christian, I personally felt like that my experiences and the experiences of my friends were evidence that the religion was true. And so I used to do like, back when like before like social media, you get in chat rooms and forums and talk to people from around the world. And I used to go to the religious chat rooms and I would talk to Muslims and people of other faiths. I was just curious, like, why do you believe? Because I had a religion teacher that kind of suggested, like, one of the reasons why this is so convincing to you is because you grew up with it. But when you look at what we believe, it's about as ridiculous as any other religion, right? And she was just trying to be very pragmatic. And it made me think, like, well, I don't know, maybe these other people, maybe I have good reason to believe it, even though it sounds ridiculous because of my experiences and other people's experiences. So I just started talking to people of other faiths about why they believed. Turned out a lot of them, like you said, believe because of their own personal experiences. I heard healing stories, miracle car crash stories, all kinds of stuff, near-death experiences. And so the thing that I realized was like, listen, if personal experience is evidence that your God is real, then it could really only ever mean that all of the gods are real, because everybody I talked to in all these religions had personal experience, or it could mean that none of the personal experience is actually relevant. And so I stopped using it as a talking point even when I was still a Christian. So that's why I personally don't use it. I know some other people have different reasons. John, what would you say?
Yeah, I would add that there tends to be a lot of focus on whether or not people have had these experiences. And I think that's actually taking our eye off the ball. The issue isn't whether or not people have had them, because people have mystical and transcendental experiences across all sorts of faiths and all sorts of cultures, and always have. The question is the question is whether our interpretation of those experiences is valid and whether it's the right one, and whether we are too quick to rush from I had an experience to I know how to explain the experience I had and it's this. And that, I think, is where the disconnect often happens. So we know that, it's possible to have all sorts of experiences when you're in a heightened emotional state, or when you're vulnerable, or when there's all sorts of conditions you might be in where it's possible to have life-changing, powerful, profound experiences. The question is why do we rush to interpret those only one way, when actually there's a spectrum of different ways to interpret such an experience, and all the other competing explanatory hypotheses for those experiences are all ignored or swept off the table, in my view, prematurely. That's where I think the problem lies often.
Yeah, so two things. Number one, I'll just say both and you can respond. But number one is, what if the differences between those belief systems themselves are less important than what's similar? That's one question. So in other words, if it's like that fundamentalist view, it's like, well, my God is right, or my like narrow kind of flat view of what it is correct. If it's not that, if it's just theism, we'll stay with theism. If it's just some kind of God, right, that is, maybe they misunderstand each other, maybe that's less important. Let's imagine that. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is, I'm not talking about a one-time experience. I'm talking about maybe it's a trajectory of life transformation that others can see as well, by the way. I'm not, like a person praying and responding and moving in new directions and acting in different ways and having a better character and things like that over a period of years. And what if it's like whole communities of that, right? So we're not talking about like, oh, one day I fell out of my bed and I saw God,
Sure,
but more of like,
but that falls. Sorry, Nora, but that falls to the same.
That's okay.
It's exactly the same problem I identified. So it's undisputed that people's lives can be completely turned around by devotional practice, by being part of a community that perhaps they weren't before. All of these changes can happen. You're essentially making a utility argument for the truth of religious claims. And there's a problem with that. That is a slightly fallacious reasoning, because we can all grant that people can have transformative experiences as a result of their devotional practice and being part of a community. That's absolutely fine. What you can't do is say, because somebody's life changed profoundly, because once they started praying and started doing this stuff and started being part of a community, that their life changed dramatically, it must be because magic is real, or spirits are real, or there is a God, or anything like that. You can't make that jump until you've ruled out other explanations, which might be things like, we know that it is extremely life-changing to feel part of something. We know that it's extremely life-changing to the extent of actually affecting your physical health, to feel part of a group of people, to have the support of a community where perhaps you didn't have it before, to feel validated, to feel a sense of purpose. All of these things they're not minor, they're huge, and they can transform a life, but they're just psychology. They're just how human minds and human bodies, which are connected to their minds, respond to changes essentially in their environment.
Yeah, except if it's not all about the community. Like I know in my personal experience and others too, I don't really fit into any particular religious community too well, or any community for that matter. I'm a bit of an oddball, right? So I don't really fit in at any church very well, and I know a lot of people like that. So it's more about walking around day to day and having different kinds of thoughts through prayer and response, at making different choices. It's a more personal than just community.
Yeah.
So
There
how
are
would
people
you
whose
explain that?
lives are changed. But there are people whose lives are changed when they start meditating. So just taking half an hour a day to be in your mind, in the moment, not distracted by thoughts, not engaging with lots of inputs, that can have a profoundly transformative effect on people's day-to-day life. So we know that these things happen. And the point I'm making is just, we shouldn't be too quick to rush from, I had this experience, or this set of experiences, or these changes in my life, to therefore I know how to correctly interpret these experiences or changes.
Yeah, so you're saying it's more reasonable though to say that, millions or billions or however many theists out there have these experiences. They may be different from one another and they may have misunderstandings, but you're saying it's more reasonable to think that they're all wrong about what's happening and it's something else than to just actually think that what they believe is happening is happening.
It's more
Like it's more
likely.
reasonable to think they're all wrong. Okay,
I'm just saying
why?
that we shouldn't rush to just assume that there's only one way of interpreting those experiences. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone should rush to do anything. I mean, I certainly don't rush to interpret anything. I'm very slow. Years it take, of learning and growing. But yeah, I guess that's kind of my thing that I wanted to bring up, because I think people bring it up, but they tend to bring it up more as like, well, all these people can't be wrong, and then it becomes this sort of apologetic, back and forth, superficial thing. But I just really think that, I mean, utility does matter, right? That's an interesting. I'm not saying I think you said, oh, it's a utility argument for belief. I wouldn't reduce it to exactly that, because I'm not like, I agree with you guys based on what the last guest or the one before, where you said I can't will myself to believe something. That is compelling and true. I can't either, right? Nobody can will themselves to believe anything. But it is, if you think empirically, and I don't mean like putting something under a microscope, but in the more generic concept of empiricism, okay, I try something and it works. I try it again and it works. It's like it's an experiment. I keep trying it and it's effective in a positive way. Why wouldn't I move toward that worldview and belief system if it's moving my life and my character and my interactions and my everything in a positive direction? Why wouldn't I choose to move toward that worldview, practically speaking?
Well, you might. You might not understand exactly what's going on while you do it. I'm not saying there's no benefit to it. But the benefit doesn't translate into truthfulness. So it's really just about whether the priority for you is doing things that make you feel good, regardless of whether your interpretation of them is true or not, or having your beliefs correspond to reality. And if that's a priority, then I'm just saying that we should be very slow and very careful about interpreting those profound experiences and changes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, having beliefs correspond to reality is a high priority for a lot of very intelligent theists that I know, academics, people who are just very smart and they care about being in reality. So I don't think it's necessarily true that everybody who believes in God or believes that prayer and response working for decades is something to take seriously is just wanting to live in la la land, right? Because I know a lot of very intelligent people. Like, for example, I used to be an atheist. Well, I was never an atheist. I was an agnostic because I felt like atheism was a bridge too far logically or whatever. So I was an agnostic, and I was an obnoxious one. In college, people would, like the Christians would come up to me, and I'd cross the street to get away from me. I was not nice to them. And my dad was really smart too, and he was a doctor, and he was just really smart. He didn't believe in God. And he told me over 10 years watching me, come to become, he didn't know I was a Christian because he hated Christianity, so I didn't bother him with it. But he said, he's like, why are you better of a person? Why are you easier to get along with? I used to have a worldview more aligned with his, and we got along terribly. I was just like him. And as things change, like it was softening and humbling and different things. I'm not a humble person. I'm not saying that I struggle with it, but I'm just saying like it does matter what the outcome is of a worldview, right? Like it matters in living. We only live for a certain amount of time. That our worldview correspond to how we live and how we treat people, and the outcome should be part of what we decide to move toward in our belief system.
I don't think we disagree,
right?
but I think the problem with saying, well, it worked for me. I think the problem with that is it doesn't work for others. Thousands and thousands of people are hurt by the church. They're sexually assaulted. They're women have been silenced and devalued. Children are commanded to be spanked, sometimes quite aggressively. And so while I do agree that there is something to be said of like, hey, well, this thing kind of helps me become a better person. Well, that same thing also helps a lot of people to become worse people. So if that's the case, I'm not really sure that it provides the value that we're looking for, in that it might be true that I can cook maybe a pretty mean breakfast of sausage, gravy, and biscuits, but if every time I cook the potatoes that go with it, I fuck it up and I actually put cyanide in it, probably shouldn't eat.
Yeah. No, you make a good point, and I think, is it possible to differentiate between fundamentalism and other things? Yeah. Because I do agree with you that fundamentalism is problematic. like of
But
any kind.
but I don't
Yeah.
know how you separate that from the religion, right? Because anyone who becomes part of the religion and they start reading the book, there's not a good reason to not become fundamentalist.
What
Certainly not
was
one you can find. Certainly not one you can find in the text.
Yeah, so that's the conversation we can have another day, more in the morning time if you want, about different texts. But in that maybe I end up, not believing. I don't know, but so far I haven't felt forced to abandon based on the text. I think the church is a great argument against Christianity and the way people act in the church. So I agree with you there. And fundamentalism is a great argument too, if you look at how it plays out, because I don't agree with it. But I don't think Jesus was actually a fundamentalist in the way he lived, and the things he did not really mimic what the church is doing and the way they treat people. So I don't think that, sort of disproves any of the, the historical claims or Jesus
Well,
himself or certain, but
if we're not going to get into that debate today, I guess it's probably better to end there before
yeah,
we start that
okay.
discussion. But please come back
Fair
anytime
enough.
you want to. More than
Mhm.
happy to go into the Bible and
Yeah,
we
sure.
can discuss the validity of some of these stories. But it sounds like you're on a journey like all the rest of us are. So best of luck on your journey and
Yeah,
keep in touch.
thank you. Okay, take care. Bye.
Have a good one. I do enjoy getting to talk to people who have graduated from either like Bible college or seminary, because I find most of the ones that I talk to are no longer fundamentalists, and they've gone super progressive and liberal because they've seen the problems and they're like, okay, I see the
Yeah.
problems. How can I still remain in the faith? And this is something you might not realize, that this is something that gets talked about a lot in Bible college and seminary. In fact, I had a professor that I'd say would go unnamed that actually participated in a collective book where multiple professors wrote, and it was called Why I Still Believe, if I remember correctly, or I Still Believe. And the kind of idea is like, despite my learning, here's why I still believe. And you'd find a whole variable list of answers. But within all those people who contributed to the book, you also would find that a lot of them are kind of agnostic or liberal, or it's very difficult to
Right.
remain fundamentalists after getting a good, proper education.
Yeah, and the fact that a book like that exists amongst people who have made it their business to learn about the Bible at a deep level tells you something. That's a data point in itself, right? Because if becoming better acquainted with the Bible and the Hebrew and the original text and the context made everyone more of a believer, then that would kind of make some kind of sense. But the fact that the higher your level of education in this area, the harder it is to maintain the belief tells you something.
Right. Yes. And for anyone who's interested in the book, it's an interesting book. It's called I Still Believe. Leading Bible Scholars Share Their Stories of Faith and Scholarship. And I bought it way back in the day when it first came out. I thought it was an interesting read, and some of you might find it interesting as well. I've got two guests waiting to get in. If I recorded them correctly on the way in, it looks like Recipe is next, and then after that is going to be Buckaroni. And we do have some super chats as well. So let me read a handful of super chats, and then we're going to get Recipe in here, and then we'll get Buckaroni right after that. While I'm doing this, friends, make sure you click on the description of this live stream and follow John's YouTube and TikTok channels if you're using those platforms. And Tim, hey, thanks for the follow-up super chat. It says Bootius. See, you know what I'm talking about here. A religion that will go down in the annals of history. They think they're deep, but some think they're full of chakra. Fantastic. But thank you, Tim. I appreciate somebody catching my play on words at the beginning of the stream. And Lancelot Cockblocker of Galahad, good to see you, says, how dare you mock that caller? Rent a cops. Keep food court safe. May Doug rain down blessings on him. John, love your clips and love that accent. Rock hard for Justin and John. Big W, Lancelot.
Thank you so much.
And Tim, with another one, says, opinions are like buttholes. Everyone has one. Most of them stink, and mine inches.
Tim's fire. He never stops. It's like a
Tim
force of
Relentless.
nature.
Tim, all I have to say is love you, but wash your hands thoroughly. And Mixtress, good to see you, says, random question, who is the devil for Doug the Rock? Is it paper or scissors? Well, So that's the thing is, it's actually no devil in Doug's pantheon. In fact, if there could be a devil, it would have been Yahweh, except Yahweh doesn't exist. So Doug is just the grounding of all grounding. Nothing can actually hold a candle to Doug, and in fact, a paper won't cut it either. Got to remember, rocks are paperweights. If anyone, that's the paper rock scissors game was malformed because it was created by Yahweh. He was jealous of the rock. But actually, the rock goes on the paper in real life because paper is weak as shit. Just a stiff breeze and it's gone. So
The rock always wins.
every single time. Duskframe, thank you for the super chat. Says, so excited, two of my favorite deconstruction streamers together. We only need 3 more to make a Voltron. Listen, maybe one day we'll do a trio on the channel. I don't know who our third would be, but I'd be down for it. Active Fool says,
definitely.
John and Justin. Truly, this chef pairing will create a scent of roast flesh pleasing unto the Lord. Rock hard for Doug. Thank you, Ekta. Listen, we're gonna try, and also come in at it again. Tim, our friend, thank you so much. As he made the rule, believe or burn. He decides who believes. True, that's what the Book of John says. He didn't choose me. That's true also, but I burn. How is that fair? Well, Tim, you already know the answer. Not fair, right? Jesus says that only he who is called by the Father can come to him. That means if the Father didn't call you, you're done. And he calls who he wills, according to Romans chapter 9. It's not by will or exertion, but by the mercy of God. And Side says, it blows my mind. These Christians just make up their own rules for the Bible. But to be fair, if you do believe in the religion and you recognize that the Bible is like slightly problematic, you might be inclined to try to move some stuff around rather than giving it up. I think we see that in most religions, to be fair. Like, it's dear to you. You don't want to give it up. So what do? You kind of go in and negotiate with the text a little bit. Tracy, good to see you, friend. Thank you for the $10 super that says, may the power of Doug and Puff give you both strength. Well, listen, I don't know anything about Puff the Magic Dragon. He's with us tonight, and we're going to have some strength to fly. Maybe even chase some dragons tonight. Guitar Atheist, thank you for the super chat. Says, it doesn't take the fear of heaven or hell to make me love humanity. True. Christianity doesn't work without Armageddon. So for your religion to stand, it has to be World War III. And, we make this point quite a bit. We can be good just on the merits of wanting to be good. Whereas Christians, a lot of Christians are being so-called good because, well, God's going to punish me if I'm not, which I don't know if that makes you a good person, if you're merely doing it to escape the hellfire. And Dylan, thank you for the vote of confidence. And the super chat says, you two are a power duo. Love to see it and hope to see more. Well, thank you for that, Dylan. Super appreciate it. And also, Mike is with us tonight. Thank you so much for the $20 super chat. It says, what a fantastic duo. Great to see John and Justin cooking together. And we are just as excited, friends, as you are. So we've got a lot more conversations coming up. I'm going to reserve some super chats for as we get further in conversations so that we don't deplete our guests by reading on the super chats. Any super chat doesn't get read between guests, we will get at the end of the stream. So don't worry, we're going to definitely read all of your chats, friends. Let's get Recipe in here from the TikTok queue, and then we'll grab Buckaroni after that. Recipe, are you driving?
Yeah, I'm pulling up. I'm gonna stop in a second.
Awesome.
So my question is about a subject, but something you usually talk about is ascension from John 3:13.
Ascension? You mean like Jesus' ascension?
Ascending? Yeah,
You mean the contradiction? You mean no one has ascended into heaven except for the one who descended from heaven? Yeah.
Yeah. So I've seen that the apologetic
Recipe,
for that.
Are you a Christian?
No.
Oh, well, we're just looking for debates, my friend.
Well, it's okay, no problem. I'll call back another time.
All right, I got a Q&A scheduled for the 19th. Drop on by.
Okay, 19th, got it.
Cheers. Well, we got some people in our YouTube queue. Let me switch over to the YouTube queue, and hopefully we'll be able to get some discussion going. Friends, thank you so much for being here. As always, remember this is a live stream for debate and discussion. As fun as it is just to talk to people, which I do enjoy, we are here with a purpose, and that is to talk about the topics on the board with people who have a different opinion than we do. So let's get Buckaroni in here. Buckaroni, are you at least 18?
Yes.
Awesome. And do you believe in God?
Yes, I'm a firm believer in Jesus Christ.
Okay. And do you have a specific topic on our screen that you would prefer to address first?
Let me see, gentlemen. So I see you can't choose what you believe. Hell is ridiculous. God hates women. Um, I mean, I can kind of touch on all of those topics just as we go, if that's okay with you all.
I think that's fine. Yep. So give us a starting point, and we'll go from there.
So I would say, as far as like, you can't choose what you believe, the Jesus that I know, he gives you free will. So when Jesus gives you free will, you're able to choose whatever you believe in. But Jesus makes it truly clear in the Bible. He says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. So through your free will, you're more than welcome to choose. Hey, if you want to be a Buddhist, an atheist, if you want to be, whatever belief you want to believe, if you want to be a Christian, whatever the case may be. But Jesus is letting you know that true belief in God and having faith in him is the only way to inherit the kingdom of heaven.
Sure. But that would be great if it was the case that believing something was an action that you can take with your free will. But believing something isn't something you do, it's something that happens to your mind. This is the reframing that we're pushing for here. This is what people need to understand. Our language is set up to treat belief like it's an action you take, because we've got phrases like, I refuse to believe and I'm choosing to believe. But actually, that's nonsense. You can't believe something as an act of will. Belief can only happen to you once your mind has become persuaded of something. And if your mind isn't persuaded, then belief is off the table. It's as impossible as flapping your arms and flying. And that's why that is a problem. That's why belief-based salvation doctrine is morally problematic, because it pretends that belief is a choice that you can use your free will to do, but that's not true.
Okay. And so like, and I heard you when you said that. So pretty much you're saying like you have to be persuaded in order to believe in something. So, for my case, I'm, like I said, firm believer in Jesus Christ. I
Yeah.
do understand that Jesus is God. So I would have to be, in other words, persuaded in order to believe that.
You don't have any choice about
Mm,
that belief, because you are currently convinced that Jesus is God. So in the moment that you became convinced of that, belief happened to you and there was nothing you could do about it. You didn't
mm,
choose to believe, you just found the arguments you'd heard or the evidence you'd heard, or the whatever experiences led you to the point of believing that Jesus is God, led to a point where you were convinced that it was true. And once that conviction happened, whether it was instantly, in a moment, or over time, it can happen in lots of different ways, then the belief happened to you and that's it. But
mm.
for someone who isn't convinced of that, can you see how belief is impossible?
I mean, I could understand that, if somebody, is just struggling with, their belief, or like I saw the young gentleman, he got on here and he was just saying some things of the nature like, I was going to church 3 days a week, and no disrespect to him. I mean, I understand, everybody falls short of the glory of God. I haven't been such a great person as well in my life, but that's why Jesus did come to die for the sins of the world so that we all can be redeemed. But like he got on the channel and he was just saying, I went to church so many days throughout the week, and he says that good people may not inherit the kingdom of heaven. And there's scripture in the word, like I said, and I rehearse the scripture, or I repeat the scripture by what it says. Sometimes I don't get the title quite right, or the book, but it says that belief doesn't come by it doesn't come by works or by what you do, or you being saved doesn't come by works, lest any man should boast. In other words, if you go and you're doing all these wonderful works and you're like, okay, God, I'm doing all these wonderful works, hey, I'm a good person. Belief comes by true submission and understanding that Jesus Christ is Lord, that Jesus Christ did die for your sins.
Yeah, but that's
What
circular because you can't do that submission and reach that understanding without the belief. So you can't make the condition for the belief already believing, right? You can see that that's a problem, right?
I mean, I can understand how that's a problem and you can't make that condition already believing, but like for instance, you said you have to be convinced. If God Himself is able to show you He's real, then
Right.
why wouldn't you believe in God?
Well, you touched on it. Is God able to do that? Is God able to provide
A-
evidence right now?
Absolutely. Yes,
Right now, hang on,
absolutely.
hang on. I haven't finished my question yet.
Okay, go ahead. Yes, sir. Yes,
Is
sir.
God able to provide evidence right now that would convince Justin and convince me that he's real?
Absolutely. Amen.
Okay, has he done that?
Hey, that is totally up to you two gentlemen.
No,
If
no, no,
God
no. That's just a yes or no. He either has or he hasn't. Has he done that?
I mean, based off of what you're debating with me on, I would say no.
Right. So right now, it's God's will that Justin and I are atheists, correct?
I don't believe that's God's will. God's will is He came to the world so that everybody can
Wait,
be
wait, wait, wait,
saved,
wait, wait,
so
wait.
including you
Don't
and
preach,
Justin.
don't preach, don't preach, don't preach. Let's
I thought
just
it was a
follow on
debate.
from no,
I
no,
thought it
no.
was a debate.
It's a discussion, but we don't want to just veer off into preaching. So we're trying
Okay,
to develop an
understood.
argument here. So you've agreed that God could provide the evidence that would make us convinced of His existence, and you've
Yes.
agreed that He hasn't done that. So it follows from that that He's happy with the current state of affairs, doesn't it? Because if He wanted it to be different, it would be different, right?
I mean, that's why I said that's totally up to, like I said early in the debate, you said that God has to He doesn't have to convince because God is not a God. Jesus isn't a God that He should convince you. God has
Well,
already laid the foundation and went to the cross in
yeah.
this world so that we all can believe.
We're not
So
talking
if
about what
you
He has to do. We're talking about what He
what He
has
has
done.
done,
What
what
He
He
has done,
has
right?
done.
So you
Yes,
agree
He went
that
to the cross.
He hasn't provided that evidence for us yet.
I
So
mean,
he
he
must.
he
So he
provided.
must.
He's already yes, sir. He's already provided that evidence by going to the cross. But you're
No, he
saying
hasn't. He
him.
hasn't. Because, but you remember, you've already agreed that he hasn't provided that evidence. The evidence, that evidence of him apparently going to the cross might have convinced you and might have convinced
No,
lots of other people, but it hasn't convinced me, hasn't convinced Justin, hasn't convinced many of the people listening to this right now. So it must be the case that God wants us currently to not be convinced if he
hey,
exists.
if you don't have the Holy Spirit dwelling in you because you refuse the Holy Spirit, I think I heard one gentleman. I don't know if he was you or Mr. Justin said that you all used to be a believer, and that can be known as apostasy, where somebody used to believe in God and has decided to go away from the faith.
We know what apostasy means, but it's
Okay,
still
understood.
it still remains the case that as you have granted that God could have made us convinced by providing the same evidence or the same level of evidence that's convinced lots of other people. He would know exactly what evidence would convince me or would convince Justin or would convince any non-believer, and he hasn't provided it because if he had, we'd be theists, right? We'd be believers. So
So yes,
that
go
just
ahead. Just I
follows
didn't mean to cut
naturally,
you off.
right? Right. So we've established that. So then it just remains to say, well, if he's happy for us to not be believers, then why does it make sense for us to be punished for not being believers?
I understand that. I mean, hell, if you and that's I'll touch on the next topic as in answering your question. So if you choose, like you said, not to be a believer, or as you're saying, because if I like mispronounce something wrong or anything of like that, like I said, the true belief in God is understanding that Jesus Christ came into the world, died for our sins, and He rose on the third day, and we just we celebrated His resurrection here just a couple of days ago. So with that being said, if you understand that belief in God is knowing that Jesus Christ came into the world to die for your sins, and He went to the cross and He rose on the third day. If you decide to believe in that, then absolutely, you do have salvation in God. And God has precepts and commandments that He's commanded us morally to say, hey, in order to continue to walk that straight and narrow path into the kingdom of heaven, we shouldn't do things as have sex outside of marriage. We shouldn't lie. We shouldn't cheat each other. We
Ooh,
should love our neighbors like we
it's
love
almost
ourselves.
it's almost like we didn't have the last 5 minutes of conversation.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I guess so. Okay, I guess so. Well,
Because I thought we'd done quite well to establish that
no,
belief
yeah,
isn't
no,
a choice.
we've done
You
quite well.
agreed
Like
with
I said,
that.
I mean, I
Yeah.
just feel like you said, it's a debate, so I understand you're going to have your set of beliefs, and I'll have mine. I think
Yeah,
this
but
is
you should.
where we're getting.
But the problem is you seem to agree with us. You established at some point that you can't control what you believe, and then you went on to say, well, if you
Oh,
choose
no.
to
Well,
believe,
can I reiterate?
but you
Let
but you don't
me
get
let
you don't
me.
get to choose what you believe. You're either
You
convinced or you're not.
absolutely do. And if I like I said, mispronounce something to where you don't like, if I chose to believe that 2 + 2 = 5, knowing that it's wrong, but I said 2 + 2 = 5, and I
You
choose
can't.
in
You can't do
anybody,
that. You can't
you
do that.
okay, so how can you deny the existence of God being a
No,
Homo
no,
sapien?
no. Hang on. You can't do that. You can't choose to believe something knowing it's wrong. That's a contradiction. That cannot be true. You're getting
Absolutely.
confused. You're getting confused between
I'm not confused.
believing something, which is something that happens internally in your own mind, and saying something, which is an action you take outside of your own mind. So you're conflating the two. So you can, if you know that 2 and 2 doesn't equal 5, you can say it. You can say the words 2 and 2 = 5, but saying it is not the same as being genuinely, honestly, profoundly, internally convinced that it's true. It's a miles away from that, miles away.
And so I say that understanding that, like you said, 2 + 2 obviously isn't 5, right? It's 4. So
Right.
if you understand that through biblical scholarship, through several countries throughout the world, being, I mean, with Western philosophy here in America was founded with biblical understanding. You have the nation of Africa, South America, things of that nature, where people understand, and it's been just left in biblical text. You have the Dead Sea
What
Scrolls,
what
you
is
know.
what are you? You're saying words, but I don't know what the point of them are. What's happening right now? What do the Dead Sea
Because
Scrolls do for the argument?
I mean, the Dead Sea Scrolls did, like you said. Okay, so if I said that 2 + 2 = 5, but I know that's completely wrong, so then you all say, well, and like I said, no disrespect to what you believe. Like I said, Jesus called me to love all, so I'm just here to defend him. So when you go and you say, okay, well, if you have to be convinced, God showed me proof. Jesus showed me proof that he was real, whether
Well,
it's through
we don't
dreams.
have proof.
Why don't you have proof? Do you not seek
Well,
that proof, or do
that's
you
up
just
to
deny that proof?
well, there is no proof. So I was a Christian for 20 years, and I studied the Bible professionally, and it turned out that there's no good proof. In fact, the Bible, if it's proof of anything, it's that it's a man-made book that's full of bad history, lies, contradictions, and failed predictions. So if that's what I have to go by, if my belief is formed on reading this book, I have no choice but to believe that this Jesus character is a goon that's been dead for 2,000 years. That's it.
Jesus was a goon.
Yeah.
Well, how was Jesus a goon?
Because he invented an entire doctrine around what you believe. Even if you talk to a modern Jew today, or you interrogate an ancient Jew, they're not going to tell you that people are merely going to suffer eternally in hellfire because they didn't believe in their God. That's not really a Jewish position. This New Testament concept that was made up by Jesus is goonish. That, hey, I'm going to contradict what this guy said in this other book, this Hebrew Bible. I'm going to contradict everything in it. But if you don't believe in me, I got to roast you.
Understood.
You see the problem? So like I understand for you, it feels like you have evidence, but the most convincing evidence for a lot of Christians, I find, is the reason I don't believe. I wanted to believe, I tried to believe, I believed for a long time, but the deeper I dug, I became to the point where I couldn't believe it because it wasn't good evidence. Same way, like if you grew up Islamic and you started seriously studying the Quran and you started realizing, hey, there's stuff in the Quran that doesn't make sense. Well, it might be the case that you grew up believing and you had a strong affinity to the religion, but once you discover that the Quran just isn't correct, like you can't stay in the faith, right? You can't choose to continue being a Muslim, right?
Give me 1 second, gentlemen. I think do you all hear me?
I can hear
Let me
you.
just.
Yeah, I think your connection
Okay,
lapsed
I
for just a
apologize. Like
brief
I
moment.
apologize. Yeah. It lapsed for a brief moment. I heard like a little static. I think it was my phone charger, maybe like making. Heard you.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, hop off like that.
Well, I mean, we can all hear you right now. Can you hear
Are we
us?
back?
Hmm.
Okay, awesome. Yes, sir. Like I said, I heard you. So, like I said, believer for 20 years. And like I said, the more that you dug, like I said, as far as your belief, the Bible is a man-made book. And as you continue to dig into, you realize that how, God wasn't real. So, or isn't real, and that's your belief. And I understand that. Like I say, everybody's entitled to what, as he says, what they've been convinced is true. Right, Mr. John?
Yeah, I mean, it's not about what people are entitled to. It's more about the fact that what you believe is inevitable based on what has convinced you. So if you've had a life where you've had exposure to ideas and experiences that have caused you to become a believer, then you have no choice about that. You've been convinced of that. That's what your belief is going to be. The belief train
Mm,
is pulling into the station whether you want it or not. You can't stop it. Similarly, if you've had a life where, for whatever reason, your experiences and mental processes have led you to a point where you just find yourself unconvinced about it, then belief is impossible. It's impossible. I've never been a believer, and
mm,
it's not possible for me to believe in Jesus or God because I'm just not
mm,
convinced it's true. So
mm.
can you see how that then creates a moral problem? If a God
I
is going
under
to if a God is going to punish me for that, why? Why is that valid? Why does it make sense to punish someone because of what they found convincing? Because right now, I can be truthful about my non-belief, or I can lie and be dishonest about it. What do you think God would prefer me to do?
and God would rather you come to him in truth and say, Father, I'm struggling to understand who you are, how you
I
created me, and things of
I
that
could do
nature. So
that.
yes,
I could do
absolutely.
that, but I'd feel like I was role playing. I'd feel like I was
And
talking to the wall.
yes, sir, absolutely. And I understand that. So if you don't want to be somebody that you say, okay, hey, well, I choose not to believe that there is a God, or Jesus
Well,
Christ is
He
God,
didn't
notice what
choose
then
happened
it.
that would
there.
be totally up to you.
He didn't
Notice
choose
what
it.
happened there. You said if you
You
choose to be someone, if you choose to say, I don't believe, there's no choice. There is no choice there. I know
okay?
people, I have friends who desperately want to believe in this stuff. They just
Mm,
don't, or they wanted
I
to for a
understand.
while. I have people in my community who had incredibly painful deconstructions where they lost their faith and they are grieving for it. They desperately wanted it back. It was a source of agony for them to lose their faith. It felt like
Mm.
losing a limb. They were not turning away from God and choosing to be without Him. They just found themselves unconvinced, and it was a painful process for them. So, where's the compassion for those people in a book which tells them next thing that's going to happen to them is being set on fire?
God always has compassion, and that's why in Peter it says, that God is slow to anger, hoping that we all come to Him into repentance. So in that case, if you're like I said, but let me touch on where you say, like you said, you've never been a believer, you don't believe, and so in that case, I would ask you, so if God and Jesus was able to show you that He was indeed true, would you believe, or will you
Of
choose to
course,
still stay an unbeliever?
it
Okay,
wouldn't be possible. It wouldn't be possible for me to stay a non-believer. If
absolutely.
God, if God showed me He was real, I would have no choice but to be a believer. It wouldn't be possible for me to not believe.
And as we continue, as he continues to put the breath of life into our nostrils every day, then that is a chance that he will allow you to be a believer. So
He
I
might.
wouldn't lose hope in that, understanding that as long as we continue to wake up day by day and we are allowed to live here on earth, I wouldn't give up that, because when you give up that, it's not that God's punishing you by saying that, okay, hey, you didn't believe in me, I'm going to condemn you to total hellfire and damnation forever. As you said, you made the statement of you can't choose what you believe. But that is the thing. Alex, I've read the I always read the King James Version Bible because I think that that was, or I know that that was the one that can be transferred into Old English or as closely related to the Hebrew Bible. But I've also
No,
read the
it's
Ethiopian Bible.
it's not, my friend. Neither one of those Bibles are close to or closer to the Hebrew than anything else. A good modern English translation will suit you just fine. You don't need anything special.
Okay, understood. Okay, and I appreciate that. Thank you. I'll keep that in mind. So, but like I said, so that would just be something as far as you, Mr. John, just touching on that topic. You would have to just continually say, you know what, God, I'm not going to try to I'm not going to even try to believe because it's just say for instance, if we all have our families. And being in the kingdom of heaven is understanding that you have surrendered to Christ, you've allowed him to you fulfilled his will on earth, and his will could be as simple as you believing in him and every chance that you get to believe in him and not denying him, because that's where people it comes to a point to where, as in Peter, it said that, Peter was saying, God, I would rather die before I denied you, before I denied you. He says, Peter, you will deny me 3 times before the cock crows tonight. And it said that Peter went
This is a
away
wild pivot.
ashamed.
Hey,
I mean,
Buck. Hey, Buck. I
yeah,
would say this. I think you're up here in good faith, but I would, just to expedite the conversation, I'll let you know that John and I are pretty familiar with the Bible. You don't actually have to retell us the stories. Like if there's a
okay,
story
understood.
that you
I'm just
want to
using the
touch
stories
on,
as like,
if
yeah,
there's a
I'm using the stories as like
no.
context.
Well, I know. So I'm saying if there's a story that you want to touch on, you can mention it. You don't have to retell it to us.
I got you. Understood. Okay. But yeah, I was just trying to, yeah, like I said, so yeah, there's no reason why God would want you. He's saying, okay, I want you to be an unbeliever. So I'm going to create you an unbeliever.
Well, he
As we
does
grow up through,
actually. So he
oh,
predestined our days for us according to the Bible, right? So Psalm 139:16, the psalmist says that your eyes beheld my unformed substance. In your book were written all the days that were formed for me when none of them had yet existed. Meaning God's the one writing out your future. That's why Jesus says in the book of John that no one comes to the Father unless already called by the Father. No one comes to me unless already called by the Father. And then we find other passages that basically say the same thing, like Ephesians chapter 2, or Ephesians chapter 1, rather, Revelation chapter 7, talk about how the elect were chosen before the foundation of the world, even. And like Romans chapter 8, that says, those that were predestined for salvation, God sanctified. So it seems like Paul, if you think Paul is serious, and the words of Jesus in the Gospel of John are serious, it seems like the people who get to go to heaven are the ones that God directly convinces them of or directly calls them. And of course, you can't deny God's will according to the Bible. That's part of the irresistible will of God, Romans chapter 9. So it seems like the fact that John and I don't believe, it seems to hinge on this fact that God just decided that it's okay, that he doesn't need us to believe. He doesn't want us to believe. He called others, he formed others to believe, but John and I, he just doesn't care about us.
And I would say that definitely the Lord does care for you all for sure, but the fact that you two don't believe doesn't deny that Jesus doesn't, like, that doesn't prove that Jesus doesn't exist. Like if you all choose to not believe, because it's a choice, that's why God gave us free will. If you choose not to believe, that's just totally up to you.
Well, I didn't say that Jesus didn't exist, although I have said that on many occasions. I don't think that's the point of what John's talking about. John's basically just bringing up this situation in terms of belief and punishment for non-belief, how it can't be just. And I think this creates a contradiction within the Christian worldview, because Deuteronomy 32:4 says that God, the rock, is just in all of his ways. But if he's unjustly punishing people by torturing them for eternity for things that they have no control over, it seems like maybe he's not actually just.
Yeah, and I mean I can understand, your point of view on that. And like I said, I'll just go ahead and say that God is acting justly. That okay. So for me, I'm in my late 20s. If I, as a believer, and like I said, I guess I grew up in church. I wasn't forced to go to church because I knew that God wanted me to be there. God has spoke to me in dreams and visions, and just through just like regular days. There's been signs and miracles that I've seen to where God, I know that Jesus is speaking to me. when you have those encounters, Jesus doesn't have to lower himself from the throne of heaven after going to the cross and say, well, look, I'm going to come here in the flesh, which one day he will, and that's where, it'll be too late to believe, because then he's saying, okay, hey, look.
Well, I think that misses the point. And sorry to interrupt you. Let me give you an analogy that maybe illustrates what we're talking about. Like if my son, if I said, listen, if my son doesn't believe that I own a Ferrari, I'm gonna have to like take him up back and beat him. I'm gonna give him as long as he needs. I'll give him a lifetime to believe that I have a Ferrari. But at the end of it, if he doesn't believe me, I'm just gonna beat him mercilessly. Well, if I never show him the Ferrari, if I never show him that I own the keys or give him a glimpse of the title or even a picture of the Ferrari, at some point he's justified in saying, actually, I don't believe in this Ferrari. Now, the fact that I've set the punishment for him, I said, well, if you don't believe I have a Ferrari, I'm going to have to beat you. Well, it's kind of irrelevant. I haven't given him a good reason to believe in the Ferrari. So me punishing him for not believing in the Ferrari would be an unfair punishment. He had no reason to believe in the Ferrari. And also, it was out of his control. He had no way to force himself to believe that I owned a Ferrari. So I'm unjustly beating my son in this analogy.
And what's even worse about that is that would still pertain even if you did own a Ferrari. So let's say in that example, you actually do own a Ferrari. You just haven't shown him the Ferrari. You've got it locked away somewhere. He's never seen it. He's never seen any sign of it, no evidence. Even if the Ferrari is real, it's still morally unacceptable to punish him for not having been convinced about it when you didn't show him the evidence he needed to do that.
And I can understand that. And so in that form, you all are saying that God has not proven to you his existence in the way that
Correct.
you would like for him to, correct?
In the way that he would know would work. It's not about what we would like.
Okay.
It's about what he would know would be effective. He
Understood.
could have done it. If he exists, he's chosen not to.
And I would say in that has to be that way that if you believe in prayer, if you don't believe in prayer, I surely do believe in the power of prayer, because prayer comes from the word of God, and the words of God are alive and active, sharper than any two-edged sword. So that would be something that you have to meet him at. God is a king. He's the high priest. He's not going to say,
I don't know what that means.
I'm going to stoop down to the human level.
What's that mean practically speaking?
Level to prove to you my existence.
Well, Buck, what's that mean practically speaking? Like, if the Bible says that no one can believe in God unless we're already prompted or given the ability to believe in God through God's calling, right? So, practically speaking, what does someone like John and I need to do to be convinced then of what can we do to convince ourselves of this God?
It's not about convincing yourself that Jesus is God, because God doesn't want you to be convinced. God wants to show you his everlasting love and mercy and his loving kindness to show you why he's real. So I would say for you to get.
But you just said he shouldn't show us, right? You just said that he shouldn't stoop down to our level to show us the evidence. So, I mean, listen, if he's not going to do it for us, if he's not going to give us the evidence, what can we do to find the evidence? Where can we find the evidence that would convince us?
You can find the evidence by, there's several things. For instance, if you've read the book of Revelations before, correct? And I know
I've read the
are familiar with the
entire Bible. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so you understand that, he says, in the end times there'll be wars and rumors of wars, earthquakes, famines, things of this nature. You all understand. I'm not repeating.
Always had them. Yeah.
Okay, understood. Okay, and we have always had them. But one thing specifically today is the Euphrates River drying up.
Oh no, Revelation 16? Yeah, that's where that comes from, area. Right? Okay.
Yeah, around that area. So he says in the end times, the Euphrates River will dry up, making the way for the kings of the east. And we understand that we're in this war conflict right now. And that's God's way. That's one way that God says, look, I'm giving you an understanding that I'm going to make a word through one of my prophets. I know that John was banished to this
Patmos.
island. Yeah, Patmos, absolutely. Yeah. So then, as John is receiving the revelation from God, that is in God's word, his way of showing us that, hey, it's me. It's the words of Jesus Christ that are alive and active that are showing us that
but
God.
They don't come true. They
Yeah,
didn't
and I
come
don't think
true.
you're not answering Justin's question, because Justin's question was, what can we do? And you just looked to a Bible verse
To read the word,
well, the
understand the
thing is,
gospel.
but you seem to be assuming that we haven't done that. I'm
No,
going to
I
guess
don't. I
that
don't assume.
Justin's probably read the word a lot more than you have. I've read the
Oh,
word
yeah. I
more
mean,
than
fair enough.
many have, more than
Fair
many
enough.
have. And the other thing it does is it does, you got to be careful not to do some victim blaming here, because
No, sir,
there are
I'm not.
many.
I would never victim blame. I would.
Okay,
I would
well,
never
just
victim
be careful,
blame.
because you might inadvertently be doing it. Because
Okay, well,
when
I don't
Justin
mean
says,
to.
no, that's okay. I know you're not meaning to. So when
Yeah.
Justin says, like, what can people do if they're going to be judged for their non-belief, then, and God's going to withhold the evidence that would persuade them, then it must be on them to somehow find it. But that's assuming they haven't tried. There are people who have tried for years and years. People who have, as I say, read the book and read the word more than you have, more than I have, who know it inside out and just don't find it persuasive. And here's the kicker: God would know that they wouldn't find just reading the book persuasive. Justin's read the book, he hasn't found it persuasive, and God would know that.
Mm.
So there has to be something more than just read the book. And what it comes down to in the end is there's nothing you can do.
I mean, and like I said, I understand you all's point of view, and for all of those who have struggled with their faith and their belief, what you can do is always it's prayer. I would say it starts with prayer. You can be an unbeliever and go to God and say, "Hey, get on your knees and say, Jesus, I'm calling out to you.
Yeah.
I
We
want to
have.
see who you are. I need to
Yeah.
believe who you are." And
And
He
if you do that,
will.
and if you
He
do
will
that
do
for
that.
40 years and you still don't believe, then what? Then what's your next move?
That is your choice. That
No,
is
it's not
your
a
choice.
choice. Nope. Belief isn't a choice, remember?
I mean, that's what
You've
you all
agreed
say.
with
The
us.
belief isn't a
But
choice.
you've agreed with us that it's
I
not.
did.
We spoke about this earlier.
If I agreed that if I for some reason or some way worded my words to say I said that belief is a choice, I apologize. That's
Right.
not
Okay.
what I meant to say. Belief, and if you'll let me just correct myself, like I said, I've grown up going to church, things of that nature, but God was able to show me that He is real. That's why I have
But
the
he
connection
hasn't
and
shown
relationship
me.
with God. And I understand that.
Okay.
But
So
sometimes it could be due to us not trying to
what
understand that
we
God is
have
real. Because how
tried.
do you want God to show you that He's real?
Well, he could have started by not telling lies in his book, right? When Jesus says that he's going to come back within a lifetime of his disciples and he's going to punish all the wicked, and then he just fucks off for 2,000 years, there's good reason to believe that the guy wasn't foretelling the future, that he actually just was out of his mind, right? So when I read the book, I don't see a good reason to believe that this God is real. I need something other than this book. This book is full of failed promises. So if God is going to convince me, it's got to be outside of this book. Outside of this book, I don't know what I have. What do I have outside of this book that can convince me that the Christian God is real?
That would just be you choosing to pray and
I did.
surrender to.
I
Okay,
did.
and if you have, like I said, I mean, we can't just say, "Oh, well, God didn't answer us at this moment in life." We understand that the believers walk, because also one thing that I would say, all the different denominations that are, you have quote unquote Christians, Catholics, Baptists, Methodists, things of that nature. The word clearly says that we're all part of the body of Christ. So if we all
But
believe in
not
the
me.
same God, that's where we are. And
Not
I
me. I'm not
understand that. And
part.
I understand that. I understand that. I know you're not a part of it, and that's completely fine. But if
But it
you
wasn't
are
by choice.
choosing,
I
I,
didn't choose.
I, but at this moment, if you say if you were a Christian for 20 years and you read the book and you did this and you did that, and you chose to walk away from God, that was your
No,
choice.
I did not.
No.
I was convinced by reading and studying the book that the book wasn't true. And if the book's not true, then neither is Christianity, right? So I didn't choose to walk away. Once I realized that I no longer believed it, I just had to be honest. Oh, I don't believe it anymore. And if you don't believe it
Mm.
anymore and you're not honest about it, now you're just lying to yourself. So I did what any honest person would do, and I admitted that I didn't believe it anymore, and that means I'm no longer a Christian. That's all that means.
And I understand that. Like I said, I mean, hey, you're entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to your own belief. It's just that the way that we are made, it's not that God is giving us an unjust punishment,
But it
but
is.
But what
See,
he's going,
but my friend, that's
go
the
ahead,
whole
sir.
point of that's the whole point of the conversation. That's what we're trying to point out here, right? If I can't
Yeah.
control what I believe, despite all of my best efforts, if I can't
Mhm.
control what I believe in this book, but I'm still going to get punished for not believing it, well, that means I'm getting punished for something that's beyond my control. And punishing somebody for things that are entirely beyond their control, especially when it's not necessary, is kind of ridiculous. Which, and maybe I don't want to divert the conversation, but please tell me you understand that the choice of heaven and hell is a false dichotomy, right? Like nobody has to go to hell. Like if John and I don't believe, God's not required to send us to hell. He could have sent us to any number of places. He could have created another
Mhm.
planet where he just sends people who happen to not believe in him, and we'd go chill out on the other planet for the afterlife. He doesn't actually have to torture anybody.
I can understand that. I absolutely can understand that. And like I said, I'm not God, so I can't say I can't look at you two gentlemen and say, okay, you all are unbelievers. God's going to send you to hell because I'm not a judge. And he says, judge, you judge lest ye be judged. So I'll never be a judge or never judge any
Sure.
man.
We appreciate that, but
So
the Bible does say so. Like if John 3:18, Revelation 7:8, I'm sorry, 21:8 says that
Yeah.
those who don't believe go to hell and or the lake of fire. And I would actually add 2 Thessalonians chapter 1 as well. So like,
Mhm.
listen, if
Mark,
you got more there,
Mark,
John, right?
Mark 16:16 as well.
Yep.
It's all through the
Mhm.
book.
Understood. I'm aware of this, of course, but like I said, I myself can't do that. So
Sure.
but that's what the book does say. So, in understanding that if you aren't a believer in Christ, then that would be the judgment for you. I mean, I understand that. So, in that case, and I'll just try to move on to the next question if we can continue to have the debate, is I would just seek God in prayer because I know that
But we
He is
did.
faithful and just to answer prayers.
But we did.
And then, okay. Well, like I said, I mean, hey, you just have to
So,
have eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart to understand.
but we do. So, so
Oh,
the problem, I think the problem with this hermeneutic, and not to, I'm not trying to be mean to you. The problem is all of these rationalizations that you're giving us. You might not be doing it on purpose, but they assume that John and I are deficient. Like we're not putting in the work. We're not sincere. We're not actually asking, but we actually are doing all those things. It just happens to be that like God chose to give you some sort of revelation, and He chose not to give us revelation. And so that means that the reason why you're going to heaven and we're going to hell is because God decided to give one person revelation and not another. That's all it comes down to.
and there's no way that I could say that, hey, I am like I said, firm believer in Jesus Christ, but I can't even be the author of my own faith because
Hmm.
I understand that God is the constructor and author of faith. I can't
Hmm.
say that, oh, hey, Buckaroni, I'm going to be the one to go to heaven because I believe in Jesus. Now I understand that believing in Jesus, I do have my salvation in him, but I can't just say, oh, well, hey, I'm going to heaven. I know that by belief in Jesus, I'm headed to heaven, but there could be anything. I could be acting unmorally. I could do anything that could say, okay, hey, look, you're not following the commandments of God or anything like that. So, yes, belief in God is also by your actions. I can't say that I'm a firm believer in God if I'm not following the commandments of God. If I understand that Jesus
Well,
came in the New Testament, go ahead, go
we
ahead.
agree. We agree. I just don't know if that's relevant. Like we agree, right? If
I
you say you
understand.
believe something, but then your behavior contradicts it, we would say you don't actually believe it. But I'm not sure that has anything to do with what we're talking about. But
Yeah,
I
but
I
yeah,
think
and
I do think we have time. I want to get to Jesus rules and possibly our TikTok guests before we run out of time tonight.
absolutely, yeah, because I don't
But
want to take up too much of you
I'd
all
be
time. Absolutely.
I'd be more than happy to touch on another topic briefly if you're interested.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
I mean, of your choosing. So, like, there's a couple
No,
topics I
yeah.
really enjoy up here, but wouldn't want to force them on you. So we talked about uh, hell being ridiculous. We talked about God hiding a little bit, but I think we also talked about number one, you can't choose what you believe. But I also like the middle topic, God is a sadist, and I think there's a pretty good precedent for this. I think the precedent for this is 2 Corinthians 4:4. One of the reasons why people go to hell is because God sends them a delusion to do that via Satan. He says, in their case, the God of this world, talking about unbelievers, has blinded the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing clearly the light of the gospel. So he actually allows Satan intentionally to blind the eyes of people who could believe so that they actually won't believe. And then on top of that, in the Hebrew Bible, when these, we'll call them Israelites, these children of God, when they mess up, he sends animals to eat their children alive. He says in Hosea 13:16 that he's going to have pregnant women ripped open by the sword and their babies dashed to pieces. In 2 Samuel, he punishes David by having his wives sexually assaulted. This sounds like a God who's actually more interested in carnage and bloodshed than love. Where did I go wrong?
Like I said, I mean, and we all understand that God is a just God. I mean, we look at the world and we look at human actions. I mean, such as things, and like I said, I know that we're on the topic, so but I'm going to speak. So when you go and you say, well, hey, God, he does these, things that, hey, if you aren't believing in him or you are a believer in him, and he'll send, these, whatever the case may be. It's also the choice of the person. If you allow Satan, because that's why Jesus came and showed us how to rebuke the devil. If you allow Satan to come in your life and cause a mass delusion for you not to believe in God, because that's why it says Satan is the author of confusion. He's a
Well,
liar. It says,
why did God give Satan the ability to deceive people, right? So, for example, if somebody had it in their heart that they weren't going to believe, they don't need Satan to come in and do that for them. Like, they already
mm-hmm,
decided that they're not going to believe, right? Although you
mm-hmm.
can't decide it. But if somebody is resistant to the religion, like, it's not that they need Satan to come in and convince them otherwise. They're already unconvinced. God could just let things play out the way that they're going to play out. It seems either redundant or cruel to then have Satan go around deceiving people.
And I understand it, and I would say that the reason why, and of course we understand, I mean, it said that even Satan himself fell from heaven like lightning. We understand that Satan himself used to be an angel in the kingdom of heaven until he decided to go against the Lord. In that case, you also have that choice, and it goes to show the genuineness of your faith. You can have all these things happen to you. Like, for instance, if I'm on the brink of my faith and I said, Lord, you know what, if something else bad happens to me, then I'm going to choose not to believe. Like, for instance, even
But
like I definitely love the story of
we're
King
asking about
David.
Satan, right? So if I already have it, if I already have this hardened heart that is resistant to God, right? Why does God allow Satan to go around preventing me from changing my heart, right? So it sounds
and
like
and even
either Satan's
and even at the
unnecessary or
mhm.
Satan is actually convincing people not to believe.
And even at the fact, like you said, you've already have a hardened heart.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not much
So
that
what's
the
Satan
devil
doing?
has to do. There's nothing that at that moment, like the devil isn't after those who already don't
Oh,
believe.
so then it's not about
He's not.
me. Yeah, so 2 Corinthians 4:4 is not about me. It's about people who could believe, right? He's deceiving people who could believe. Otherwise, it would be a useless
Exactly.
position.
So his thing is he's your opposition. Satan
I
doesn't
know.
want you to believe. Satan doesn't
I
want you to
know.
have any belief in
We
God.
got
Is
it.
God
So
is God powerful enough to stop Satan doing all this
He
mischief?
absolutely he already has. He absolutely has, and yes, he already has the victory over Satan. Yes, so he can stop that. But it's genuine faith to show that if you are a child of God and you believe in God, if you understand the devil sending you these delusions or these hard times that are coming upon you because your faith is being tested, it is up to you to submit to God, resist the devil, so that he will
But
flee
you
from
can't.
you. If you
You can't do
absolutely
no,
can, if the
you
devil
can't
came to my
no, you
doorstep
can't do
right
that
now.
because the devil has given you a delusion. He's blinded you.
But
With God's
you
permission.
don't have to accept. You don't you being
But
deceived is
you
a
don't know any
choice.
better.
You don't have to be deceived
Do
or
deceived people know they're
accepting a
deceived?
delusion. I
That's what
believe
being
they
that's
do. I think
literally
everybody knows right from
that's
wrong. Truth be
literally what
told,
being deceived means. Being
yes,
deceived means
absolutely.
it means being wrong and not knowing it. That's literally
Uh,
what it means.
Yes, and I mean I know that is literally what it means, but I'm saying if you choose to allow the devil to come in, God has shown us, and like I said, we'll touch back because I would like one of the biggest significant signs of his existence is the Euphrates rivers drying
Oh
up, and then
no.
after
Well,
after
I don't think you've adequately addressed what was said, but
I mean, if you all will give me the chance to address it, I will.
Well, I don't think you're going to, but let's just put
I definitely am.
We'll get there. Let's just put the river to bed so we don't have to do this again. In Revelation
Okay,
16, in Revelation 16, it tells you what's going to happen in the supposed end times, which is going to precede the final war in chapter 20. And we've got these bowls of wrath. Now, it's important to recognize that there are bowls of wrath, and they come in a particular order. The first bowl of wrath is poured out on the earth, and a foul and painful sore come on those who had the brand of the beast and worship the image. Has that happened?
I mean, just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it isn't going to. But it's definitely getting ready to take place. That's why we have things
just a question.
Such as
did it
digital
happen?
currencies.
Did it happen?
They're trying to take away where you have. I mean, even now I know in Britain.
Just need yes or no's. Just need a yes or no. Did it happen?
Okay. They have not happened.
Okay. Second angel. This is the second bowl of wrath now. Second angel poured his bowl into the sea, and it became like blood of a corpse, and every living thing in the sea died. Did that happen?
Has not happened.
Right, gotcha. We're gonna get fair enough. Third bowl of wrath, right? It says he poured the bowl into the rivers and springs of water, and they became blood. Did that happen?
No, sir.
Gotcha. We're almost there. Fourth bowl of wrath was poured out on the sun, and the sun became infinitely hotter, and it scorched people so that they would be burned and that they would curse God, so on and so forth. Did that happen?
Has not happened yet.
Gotcha. We're getting really close. We need the sixth bowl of wrath. We're on the fifth. It says that he poured his bowl on the throne of the beast, and its kingdom was plunged into darkness, and so on and so forth. That hasn't happened yet, right?
Understood.
Gotcha. Now, the sixth bowl of wrath comes after these 5 other bowls. It says the sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and the water dried up in order to prepare way for the kings of the east. And I saw 3 foul spirits, so on and so forth. Now, fogs haven't come out of this river. The river hasn't actually dried up. And the river itself doesn't need to dry up for the kings of the east to come over. This was written at a time period where the river was actually a hindrance for the Parthian army. The kings of the east were the Parthians, right? So you would say that this is an issue. That being said, this is not an issue for anybody in the modern age. This river is utterly irrelevant to the kings of the east.
It isn't an issue yet. So like I said, just because these things haven't happened doesn't mean they aren't going to happen, because it's definitely going to take place.
But my point is this.
And I would encourage
there
that
are
when they do happen,
7
maybe that'll
bowls.
be your sign to go back to believe.
Hey, Buck, it's not going to happen. So there are 7 bowls of wrath, right?
They will.
The 6th bowl of wrath not only didn't happen, but it must be preceded by 5 other bowls, which obviously didn't happen.
Does it say that they need to be preceded by 5 other bowls? It doesn't say that.
Yes. So this is a consecutive events inside of this chapter of Revelation. There's an event, and then another event, and then another event leading into the military battle, right?
But does it say that in the word that they have to proceed after each other?
It's why they're numbered.
Right.
I mean, I understand it's why they're numbered. I mean, you don't have to do things in chronological order.
But it would be stupid and silly to not. If you have these numbers of bowls of wrath and you're leading up to a narrative of a war, like here's what's going to happen prior to the war, it would be silly then to tell the whole story out of order. Like that would be a nonsensical thing to do.
So can I ask you all a question real quick?
Well, my point is very clear. Like the 6th bowl of wrath didn't actually even come true. But if it did come true, it would be merely coincidental. Just because you have a book full of predictions, it doesn't mean that every prediction is ever going to fail. You're going to give a prediction somewhere that eventually comes close to looking like it came true. And that's what you really have in this Euphrates River. This is talking about a time period when people needed the river to actually dry up to cross over. That time period's gone. It's an irrelevant thing. The river hasn't actually dried up. And the state that it's in right now, it's been in that state multiple times throughout history. Sometimes it gets cut off and you lose a little bit of flow. In fact, the current drying of the Euphrates was partially driven by man-made actions as well. So it's at anything, if anything, it would just be a random self-fulfilling prophecy.
No, yeah, I mean, and I could, so let's just say, for instance, right, because you said this is a random, self-fulfilling, quote unquote, man-made prophecy. So understanding that and let's just say that, like you said, no disrespect to you, gentlemen, as your stance as you take, but when these things start to happen, would that be enough for God to, quote unquote, convince you that he's real, or would you still not have belief in God?
No, because the New Testament clearly contradicts the Hebrew Bible. So until he fixes the clear contradictions between the New Testament and the Old Testament, some of these random things happening like in nature aren't going to be convincing. But also, I have no reason to believe that these rivers could or would ever turn to literal blood. These are like imageries that are evoking like the Egyptian plagues, and while they're interesting, the ones of the Egyptian plagues weren't real to begin with. So, like, I get it. I
Is
understand that.
Egypt not completely? Is ancient Egypt not completely desolate right now?
No, in fact, my I have family in-laws that still live there. My son is
They
100.
but they live in the
My
ancient
son's
Egyptian
my
city.
son's mother is 100% Egyptian.
I mean, okay, just because she's 100% Egyptian, you're avoiding the question. Is she living in the ancient Egyptian city that is completely destroyed? Like, yes,
Her,
people go and visit
her
the ancient
grand well,
pyramids of like,
Egypt's not a city, okay? And her
okay,
grandparents
okay, excuse
immigrated.
me.
Her grandparents immigrated from Egypt. And there are many people living in Egypt now, millions and millions of people living in ancient Egypt even today, which brings up another failed prophecy. God says in the book of
Ezekiel
Isaiah and Ezekiel, yeah, that Egypt's,
29:10.
yep,
Mm, okay,
He
okay.
prophesied that the whole of Egypt would become desolate, and no human foot shall pass through it, and no animal shall pass through it, uninhabited for 40 years. Egypt has never in its entire history been uninhabited for a period of 40 years. Has
How
never
old are you,
happened.
John? How old
Old
are you?
enough to know that Egypt has never been uninhabited for 40 years.
Are you old enough to know that the Egypt's never been uninhabited? I mean, you would have to be old enough to go back to that time, correct?
No,
no.
you don't have to be old enough to go back to that time. We have
But
records, we have
is the ancient
archaeology.
Egyptian city where
We have
the ancient Egyptians used to live, those that believed in many gods and things of that nature, is that ancient city no longer inhabitable? Nothing grows there. It's completely dry.
Which
Look
city?
at the pyramids, look at the
Egypt's not a
Sphinx.
city.
Okay, well, okay, I'm sorry. Like I said, Egypt's not a city, excuse me.
So no, Egypt
But
has never at
are
any
people
point been
living there? Is
uninhabited.
that's the question. Are
People have
people
always
living
been
in that
living.
direct
It's been
place?
occupied for all of its history that we have recorded.
Oh, okay. Understood. I understand.
All right. Hey, listen, Boca Rooney, you're fun to talk to. You have a really cool accent, but we do have to move on because
Thank
we
you.
have limited time in the show. So come
Understood.
back, chat with us again, and hope you have a good one.
Absolutely.
All right, cheers,
Thanks.
man. Super fun accent. Maybe didn't follow everything we were saying, but I think he was trying.
Yeah, he was trying. It
Um,
is uniquely frustrating when you establish a point in the discussion and you think, okay, we've nailed that one down, and then you move to iterate to the next point, and then the first one is denied again.
Yeah, it is. Let me grab a couple super chats, friends, and then we're gonna get Jesus rules in here next in line. And if we have time, I'm reluctant to even attempt our TikTok guest who goes by the name of Free NOODS, please. You may or may not get in. Gordon Loves Science, thank you for the super chat, says, I'm just meeting you, Justin. Well, hey, good to meet you, Gordon. But if John says you're okay, that's all I need to know to subscribe. Well, thank you, Gordon. I really appreciate that. And I would trust John's judgment as well.
Gordon's great.
Let me see. Technomancer Magus is a wild name. Thank you for the super chat. It says, if I donate some money, can you stop guests from preaching at your audience? This was billed as debate, not listen to believers preach at the host. Oof. Well, Techno, I would say this. I think John and I both agree that if the guest is up in good faith, you want to give them a little bit of leniency to be themselves. And I get when you're a Christian, it's easy to fall into preaching. We reined it in when it seems to get excessive, but I understand everybody's level of excessive preaching is going to be a little different. We try to manage it as much as possible, but you got to remember, when you're in a discussion and you want to win people to your point of view, you can't do it by needlessly being mean to people that you're talking to. You have to show some courtesy to your guests until they get out of pocket and start being rude to you. Once that happens, that you can kind of take the gloves off. But hey, Dougosaurus Erectus, good to see you tonight, buddy. Says, just learned that I'm in the running for the T-Rex name. You are. Yes, you're in the top 3. The Erectus part just exploded. I mean,
it happens.
It does indeed happen. What's happening here? Rocker for Doug and Simply What for Shared. It sounds like you're having your own Simply What nocturnal emissions. Glad you're doing okay, though, friend. And Axehead, good to see you, says, whoa, my two favorite people on the YouTubes together. I like pizza and Coke. Hi, guys. It's Axe YouTube. Tried to hide this greatness from me. We would never hide this from you, friend. We did make this public. I'm sorry if you didn't see it sooner, but we'll probably do it again. Don't worry. We'll have a reprisal at some point. And Contra Didi, great to see you. Thank you for the super chat. Says, I had a thought about how Christians should really spend all of their time practicing singing holy, holy, holy. Well, yeah, because in Revelation, that's what the 24 are doing around the throne. It would be so embarrassing to get to heaven and not be able to hit the high notes. You know what? As a Christian, I was like, I'm not going to sing in heaven. I don't even like singing here. I'm not going to sing up in heaven. But thank you for the note. Rock hard for Justin. Justin's fucking rock. And rock hard for Sharon. Thank you so much. Also, the J counts for John too. So rock hard for both. And Johnny, thank you for the super chat. Said religion is actually a good thing. Without it, some people would go around and grape each other, apparently. Well, I think they say they would. I don't think they would. I think they would do like the Ricky Gervais. You know, I've murdered as many people as I want to murder. It just happens to be that I don't want to murder anybody. And Randy, thank you for sending out 20 Deconstruction Zone memberships. I really appreciate that, friend. Also, look at who's in the house. Rock hard for Doug. Good to see you again. So would love to hear more about the Puff reference. I wove Puff and Jackie into my son's bedtime stories for years. Y'all are cooking tonight. Thank you, Rock Hard. You know what? I don't know as much about Puff as I did when I was younger. When I was younger, Puff was more, I want to say, mainstream. John, do you remember much about Puff the Magic Dragon?
Yeah, so the reason why Puff keeps coming up is when I used to debate a lot on Twitter, before it became a untenable cesspool, I used to do a lot of like religious debates on Twitter, and Puff the Magic Dragon was my Doug. So when people would start preaching about Jesus or Allah or whatever it was, I would just start preaching about and Puff the Magic Dragon, and he lived by the sea, and I invented this whole lore around Puff the Magic Dragon. And I've kind of brought that into my work here a little bit. And I was really hesitant to do it because I knew that you were running Doug, and I didn't want it to look exactly like I was doing exactly the same thing. So I stopped doing it. And then some of my wonderful people around me kind of gave me permission. They said, no, just do it. Lean into it. It's all right. So there's a whole kind of Puff culture, and we say, may you be reflected in his scales. And it's all like that. And I say there's evidence of Puff because his fiery breath is very hot, and we have the sun in the sky, which is direct evidence, if we ever needed any, of Puff, and that's the whole thing that's built up there. So that's the Puff references.
I love it. I love it. We're going to do one more super chat, and then we're going to get Jesus Rules in here from the YouTube queue. Green Kid, thank you so much for the $20 super chat. It says, just wanted to ask if you remember a live you did where you had an older gentleman try to argue God's existence by using flat earth, gematria, and like a crazy amount of chromosomes or something along those lines. Yes. I think that might be Nebraska Steve, that you might be referring to. He does that kind of thing. He's really into that. Outside of Nebraska Steve, I might not know exactly who the person is anymore. I didn't start recording. I have a spreadsheet that I record everyone I talk to, but I didn't start using that spreadsheet until like 6 or 7 months ago. So if it was more than 6 or 7 months ago, I don't have record of it. You just have to search the Deconstruction Zone catalog. But in the future, like all of the debates for this year will be cataloged on my spreadsheet. So if somebody asks about it, I can actually just find it. Especially if you remembered like anything about the conversation. I generally am writing down notes about like kind of what we talked about, whether they were Christian. So we're trying to get improvements so we can better catalog the videos. So unfortunately, other than Nebraska Steve, he's the only one that comes to mind right now. But do a search. In fact, hold on, I've got a notebook and one of the Google Notebook LMs or whatever they call it that has like all of my live streams loaded up. While we get the next guest in here, I'll ask it if it can recall a guest that talked about those particular topics, and maybe it'll come up with somebody other than Steve, and hopefully that might be a method for getting the information. But let's get Jesus Rules in here first, and then we'll do the Googling second. Welcome in, Jesus Rules. Are you at least 18?
Yes, I am. Hello.
Awesome. And is it safe to assume you believe in Jesus?
Well, to begin with, let's say Jesus loves both of you,
Oh
right?
boy.
I don't know whether you're an atheist or something. Jesus will always love you.
Sure,
I mean,
but we don't believe that Jesus is even alive, so that's not really a meaningful statement.
you are come on, you are
Would
literally a pastor, Justin.
a
You
what?
are literally a pastor.
I was. I'm
You are
not anymore
literally, yeah.
because I'm a slave to truth. So my question is, we've got a list of topics on the screen. These are topics that both John and I enjoy doing. Is there a topic that you would prefer to talk about?
Well, the most important topic for me is if you are really an atheist, why you always criticize Jesus and Christianity? Well, you don't have any guts to criticize any other religion
I think
or
you're out of your mind
and
if you think I haven't critiqued every
no, you
religious caller
haven't.
that has
You
ever
haven't,
called in
Justin.
here. In fact, I'm going to show you on my YouTube channel an entire playlist that I have specifically for debating against Muslims, and I'll just demonstrate that you're someone who actually doesn't pay attention to anything and you just make things up. So here is going to be my YouTube page. Look who's actually right there with me. It's me and John. And if you go to my YouTube page, let's just say, let's see, Deconstruction. I can't type zone. There we go. Oh, not the podcast. There we go. And if you go to my playlists, you will in fact find a playlist called Cooking Muslims. It's the Cooking Mormons, Cooking Theists, POSFFs, Cooking Philbros, DZ Lore, Quantum Woo, Line Clips, Ancient Near East, Interviews, Prophecies, Good Conversations, Cooking Christians, live streams, questions in the Bible. There we go, Cooking Muslims. We got a whole playlist dedicated to it, and I don't know why it picked a random video, but there. Oh, almost got it. Let's see if we can make it load properly.
Look at the number. Just one video.
Yeah.
And
So
rest other are all Christian, anti-Christian.
inside of this is at least 16 different videos that are on this playlist. This playlist actually was created long after I started taking guests, which means I've talked to way more than just 16 Muslims. In fact, those are just the Muslims that I've already clipped. I've got dozens of Muslims I've talked to that I haven't even clipped yet. So listen, I get it. You're mad that your religion fails and you want to cry about Muslims, but that's not going to fix anything. So tell me a little bit about why your religion is true, or pick something from the board that we can actually talk about.
My religion never fails, God. My religion never fails.
Sure, but did you actually want to address a topic on the board, or do you just want me to show you how your religion
you can
fails?
be culturally Christian as well. I mean, if you don't believe in God,
This guy
you can
can't
be
be
culturally
real.
Christian, son.
No one cares.
Seriously.
Can you address something on the board or no?
It never failed.
The Bible never
It
failed,
is
or God
real.
never failed?
God, Christ is always real.
You want me to show you where the Bible failed pretty hard?
Well,
You sound like a soundboard at the moment. I
I'm
mean,
not
it would be great to have a kind of actual linear conversation rather than just a collection of
both.
slogans.
It depends. It depends. I mean, the New Testament is the real Bible, not the old one. So,
Well, you
if
need
you have
both of
read
them
the
for a
Old
full
Testament and you're saying the Bible is incorrect, then yeah, you're right. But if it's the New Testament, listen, you believe in I believe in Trinity, and true.
one. But the
To be
Trinity can't be
honest,
true because it's logically incoherent.
the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit.
Okay. Yeah, John, you nailed it. He's just on board. We're going to move on, okay? Jesus rules it.
Yeah.
You're not equipped for this conversation, okay? All right. I guess we'll move on to next in line, and maybe we'll get some robust conversation going. Let's get Religion Investigator up here from our TikTok queue. Welcome, Religion Investigator. Are you at least 18?
It's a snorer.
Not even awake. All right, well, I'll try another one.
That's hardcore investigation going on right there.
Right, yeah, for sure. Truth is having a little trouble connecting as well.
Yeah. TikTok's weird like that, right? You just click to bring someone in, and sometimes it's quick, and there you go.
Yeah. Welcome back, Truth in Tell Us. I don't have to ask you if you're at least 18 because I know you're over the age of 18. I don't have to ask you your religion because I know that you're a Christian. So the question I would ask you is there a topic on the board that is interesting to you that you would like to talk about?
Yeah. I would like to discuss, or I guess have a question on the topic, why is God hiding and what that means?
Sure. Well, maybe we can start out. Do you think God is hiding?
I would have to know what you mean by hiding, I guess, before I could answer properly.
Do you not know what hiding means?
I don't know what hiding means to you. So could you just kind of describe that, and then we could have a conversation based on what you're trying to portray through the words on the board there?
Deliberately remaining hidden.
Okay. So yeah, I would say God does not deliberately remain hidden at this point in time or any point in time. But I guess, are we going to address just biblically he had remained hidden, or are you talking about right now in the year 2026?
We can talk about right now. So do you think God is deliberately remaining hidden now or not?
No.
Would that apply to everyone or just certain people?
That would apply universally.
Universally. Okay. So God is trying to make himself known to Justin and to me right now.
So that's much different than what you mean by hiding. So which one are you trying to say? Can you actually formulate your argument a little bit better, please?
Yeah. So if he's either trying to remain hidden or he's trying to make himself known.
That's a non sequitur.
Right? I mean, he could be doing neither, but if he's doing neither, then that's kind of remaining hidden, isn't it? Because at the moment we can't discern him.
Okay, hold on a second. So that comes down to what you mean by, is he actively remaining hidden, or is he actively trying to prove to us he exists? You're saying there's not like an in between. It has to just be a binary one or the other.
Well, there could be an in between, but the issue is we're told that we have an obligation to have a relationship with him on pain of death and torture. So don't you think that if that's the case, that it's incumbent on him to not be quite so shy?
Well, so I take a stance that there's no such thing as free will, and there's a such thing as predestination. So I guess we'd have to kind of approach it from that angle. I think that God will have those who are going to believe in him, and there's some people who may believe in him for a period of time and then stop, like Justin, and then there are those who do not believe in him, come to a belief in him, and remain believing in him.
So is this just vanilla Calvinism, or is this some offshoot of that?
I don't know what you mean by vanilla Calvinism. Yes, sir.
So Truth and Tell Us, and I've talked a few times, he's a full preterist, and as far as I can tell, does also hold to some of the core tenets of Calvinism.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say I align most closely with Calvinism if I had to put a stamp on it.
Do you not think it's morally problematic then if God decides who's going to be able to discern him and who isn't? And then I don't want to presume on what you think happens later. So let me ask you, rather than launch into it first, what does happen to people who don't discern God and can't find him?
So again, there are those who do discern God and find him and then stop that belief. And then there are those who maybe never do. But yeah, that's annihilation in my view.
Annihilation. So like the sort of cosmic death penalty then?
Well, I think actually really what you get with annihilation is exactly what you want, because like I can't speak for you, John, but I'm pretty sure for Justin, he believes once you unalive, it's just nothingness anyway. So the atheist gets what they want actually out of it.
But that's
Well,
not what we want.
believing that to be the case is not the same as wanting it to be the case. I agree with Justin on that.
Oh, okay,
I
that's
think
interesting.
when you die, you return to the same condition you were in before you were born, which is nothing. But that doesn't mean you want it to be the case. It doesn't mean you get what you've asked for. I'd love to keep on going. I like being alive.
Interesting. So you're saying that in essence, the idea of an afterlife could be something that you would find appealing, but you just don't find yourself at a place where you could ever agree to one?
It's not that I could never agree to one. It's that I'm just not currently persuaded that one exists.
Oh,
It would be
okay.
great.
Right, that's
I
good.
don't know if I'd sign up for eternity, because that's an awful long time. But I'd like to have an out. I'd like to have an exit switch where I could just go, okay, I'm done now. I've had 100 trillion years of singing how great thou art, and now I'm finished, and stop. But I certainly, I'm not in any hurry to stop existing. So it would be great to be able to carry on going. I don't think that what's true is governed by what you like. I think what's true is governed by what you find, by what's real.
Well, let me ask you, John. You said that you want your exit switch once it's said and done. So my question is, once you hit your exit switch, what happens after your trillion years?
I don't know. It's a hypothetical, because I just think the idea of contemplating an eternity, very easy to say, oh, everyone's going to live forever, it's all going to be wonderful. The reality of living for eternity might come with some problems. You're going to reach a point where you've achieved all your goals. You're going to reach a point where you've kind of done everything you wanted to do, learned all the instruments you wanted to learn, had all the relationships you wanted to have. You might get to a point of a kind of, I don't know, a sort of celestial burnout where you've just had enough, and maybe what you crave is the one thing you've never had. The one experience you've never had is not having any more experiences. Maybe. I don't know. I'm
Right.
speculating.
Okay.
I don't know.
Right. Okay, that's fair enough. So you could, at one point, maybe eventually get to where you want to be, because you want annihilation at that point, right? You're like, okay, I'm done. The show's over.
But that's a side issue, because I'm prepared to concede that point
Okay.
and say, no, I was wrong about that, and I'm never going to reach that point. That's a possibility also. That's why I
Okay.
said I might
Right.
want it, not I will want it. Let's assume, for argument's sake, that I'm never going to want that I'd love to keep on going forever. It would be wonderful to keep on existing, to keep on having relationships with the people that matter to me. I don't want to stop doing that ever, but I'm required to believe things I currently don't find convincing in order for that to happen. That doesn't seem fair.
Right. So yeah, you brought up like, if I find it to be a moral dilemma, basically.
Well, it's
right.
morally ridiculous. It's morally ridiculous to give everlasting life to people who happened to find a particular set of claims convincing, and withdraw it from people who didn't happen to find a particular set of claims convincing.
Right.
That's morally stupid.
Yeah, correct. I understand. So my problem, or not even a problem, but I guess what my response would be is, I don't believe the word morality ever appears in the Bible. So I don't think God is concerned with morality.
But I am.
Right, I understand that, but you're talking from the perspective of a believer, right? You're saying, why is God hiding? I presented my argument. You said, well, did I find that morally wrong? I'm rebutting by saying, but you don't find the word morality in the Bible. So how is that contradicting why you think God is hiding or not?
Yeah, this sounds a little bit of confusion here. I'm saying that, look, God doesn't owe us an appearance. God's perfectly entitled to remain hidden if he wants to, until he starts threatening to set us on fire for not having a relationship with him. At that point, it does become a moral issue, because he's threatening punitive actions against people who don't have a relationship with him, and then hiding to stop that happening. And you said it yourself, he decides who's going to have that relationship. So the word morality may not appear in the Bible, but the Bible certainly is prescribing certain courses of behavior which have moral implications and are amenable to moral evaluation, and they fail the test pretty badly.
So I guess that's like trying to put the square peg in the round hole, because the Bible is never once proclaiming that morality needs to be applied to it. So go ahead.
Well,
Justin,
the book of Deuteronomy says that God is just in all of his ways. And I don't know if we're necessarily invoking morality. I think fairness can be wrapped up in the idea of justice.
Yeah.
I would disagree. I don't think the word fair ever appears in the Bible either.
But justice does.
These concepts are not dependent on whether they appear in the Bible. We have concepts, we can talk about them, and we can apply them meaningfully to the Bible, even if those words don't actually appear in the Bible, because that's what language is for.
But that's retroactive, right? So like at the time of the text being written and it being applied, those concepts weren't in the minds of the people of the Israelites. So that's like me reading, the same kind of like ancient Near East text and being like, well, yeah, I'm going to impose it. That's not fair on those people. Like, if we're going to take the text for what it is, and if we're taking the Bible as an authoritative text, which I do because I'm a Christian, you don't because you're not. Again, I'm just bringing up a rebuttal. Well, hey, the Bible never says that there's fairness. The Bible never says that there's morality. So if you're trying to use that argument with me on like predestination, I just don't see it landing. I'm still waiting for a good argument.
That's why Justin brought up justice, because read Deuteronomy 32:4. What does it say about justice there?
Let me go ahead and see. So in Deuteronomy 32, which again, this is, I guess I could talk about it after we read it, but Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 4.
It says all his, I'll save you the time. It says all his ways are just. So then we can talk about.
Well, no, it doesn't. It says for all his. No, it doesn't. It says all his ways are judgment. The Hebrew word is judgment.
No.
So what everything that God does is judgment. Yes. Just
no. You're wrong.
All right, let's look at it together, bro. We'll look at it together.
This is why, again, we're going to have to sit you down and demonstrate that you don't know how Hebrew works. So. Sure. Just because a word like justice and judgment have a similar root word doesn't mean that it always means the same thing every time you see it. Context allows you to know how the root is actually being placed, as does the grammar, which is why none of the translations say that all of his ways are judgment. It says all of his ways are just or justice, which is why it also says that he is without injustice.
Justin, the word's mishpat. Can you show me how it's used in Exodus 28:30?
I can show you how it's used in other places where it is used of justice. And I can show you how it's juxtaposed in Deuteronomy 32:4 with the actual word for injustice. So avel in Hebrew literally is translated to injustice. So it's juxtaposed. It says all of his ways are just, a true God without injustice. It's a dichotomy. He doesn't have any injustice because all of his ways are just. And so, yeah, I agree. I agree. Mishpat in Hebrew can mean a number of things.
Yeah, and I would again argue that
you appear to be arguing to defend the proposition that God is not just. Is that really the avenue you meant to walk into right now?
No, I think judgment is indicative of just because God is the ultimate judge. So everything he does is just, as in justified. But it doesn't mean that it has to be moral. It doesn't mean that it has to be fair.
It doesn't. So justice, it doesn't have to be fair. I mean, you seem to be developing a rather idiosyncratic definition of justice if you're suggesting that it doesn't have to be fair. Isn't that what justice entails?
Well, okay, so let's look at it like this. If you are accused of a crime, right, and you're guilty of the crime, like, whatever, circumstantial evidence aside, let's say you drove drunk and you got in a car accident and unalived somebody, you could think it's unfair that you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison, but the judge passed down a judgment. So like the word, like, fairness is just, like, what's the term I'm going to think of here? What's the term? Objective? Subjective, maybe? Like what's fair for one is not fair for another.
People can have a difference of opinion and evaluate things differently, but that doesn't set the concept of fairness on fire and make it meaningless. And justice is about having appropriate punishments that fit the crime. And built into that is some notion of fairness. Now, there may be disagreement in the margins about particular instances as to whether fairness has been achieved. But that doesn't destroy the concept of fairness as pertains to justice, does it?
Well, it does, because again, there's no concept of fairness, at least in the text of the Bible as we know it. So
There is.
that's
Right.
why. But
That's what
that's
what
what I'm
injustice
saying, though.
means. Injustice basically means an inequality in a situation. There's a situation where
Well,
there is inequity.
so Avel is perversion. Okay, it's not injustice.
The
It's
literal
it's
definition.
okay.
I'll just show you the literal definition. The first
Yeah.
definition is injustice and unrighteousness in the Brown Driver Briggs. I can show you in the Hallett as well.
I'm a very well aware that a lexicon could try and apply the the word injustice or unrighteous to that, but really it's a perversion. So in God there is no
The
perversion.
lexicon
Yeah.
is wrong. The Hebrew lexicon is wrong, is what you're saying.
I'm not saying that the Hebrew lexicon is wrong. What I'm saying though is if you break down character for character the word avel, it portrays through
the individual
okay.
characters in the
go
word
ahead.
avel don't have meanings.
Well, that's arguable. I mean, on
That's
their
not
own they do,
arguable.
and when you
No, they
then when
don't.
you chain them
They
together, you
don't.
get the okay.
They haven't for
Okay.
thousands of years.
You're
So
right.
Hebrew
I agree with you. Good thing this was
Hebrew is a consonantal language. It works on
Okay.
consonants. The individual
Right.
letters haven't had meanings since 2 generations of language evolution. Back when they were pictograms, yes, a single pictogram could have a meaning, but then it turned into a syllabic language, and they picked a single individual letter to represent a syllable. It used that syllable because the first sound that left your mouth when you spoke that syllable was the sound they were looking for. And then they said,
Right.
hey, if you combine certain sounds together, you can actually reduce the number of syllables and you can convert to a consonantal text. So what that means is that the individual meaning of these things can't be combined in a consonantal text when they actually have already gone through syllabification. This is not how language works. This is why scholars would laugh you out of a classroom if you tried to say this.
Well, I mean, again, I can understand with the Masoretic text, that's what they did. You're right, because it's
That's
something
not
that was
what the Masoretic text did. This happened 1,000, 1,500 years prior to the Masoretic text. The Ugaritics already did it. The people at Ugarit took the cuneiform language and they adopted it to the Phoenician language. The cuneiform language that they started with was syllabic in nature, which means it was already abstracted. It already didn't have individual meanings for the individual letters because it was already in the syllabic state. It has to be pre-syllabic to have meanings for the individual letters. This is just a basic error in how language has developed that, again, I hate to say this about you, but you say things authoritatively having zero information as to how they work because it sounds like you got stuff from internet rather than from actual scholars. Like any linguistic scholar is going to tell you that once you go through syllabification and then you get to a consonantal language, the original meaning of the pictograms are entirely useless.
Right. And so, but I'm also approaching it from when Deuteronomy 32 was written, it would have still been consonant language. It would have been pictogrammic language.
No, it wouldn't
But
have.
I mean, okay. All right. Sure. So again, I guess to go back to the original point though, what it's portraying, because if you want to use semantic range, I'm just going to push back and say, well, really the semantic range is that there's no perversion in him. So again, it's not about injustice or justice or fairness or morality. So
what do you think
I
the
guess we
perversion
can sit
is?
here and well, that would be like almost like a contradiction of what is right would be a perversion.
Yeah, and is unfairness right?
Again, though, I think it's subjective.
Is it
So
right
you
to
could
be?
say it's unfair.
Is it right to be unfair?
Well, if you're the one that's being feeling like it's unfair, then no, of course you're going to say that's wrong. But
Okay,
there's others that would say no, this is
if
fair.
a judge gave you an unfair punishment, would that be called justice?
Again, fairness is in the eye of the beholder. So
That's
I
weird.
can say, hey,
I'm just
that's
asking you. Like, listen, if I didn't
Yeah.
commit a crime, if John commits a crime and then I take the punishment for it, like the judge says, I know John did the crime, but I actually just don't. I don't want to punish John. I want to punish Justin. Is that an unfair punishment?
Justin, if I hate your guts, I would say no, it was fair.
It's weird that you can't just say yes or no. Is it an unfair punishment?
Bro, because it's not. It's a subjective question.
Is
So
it
if
an
you're
unfair
asking me,
punishment?
no. Look. You're trying to pin
I
me
just
down on
I
what
just need
my
a yes or
feelings are.
no. I'm not asking
I
about your feelings.
understand
I'm
that,
asking
Justin.
about the state of affairs.
You are asking about my
Would
no.
it
The
be
state of affairs
fair
is my
to
feelings.
punish somebody for something that they did not do based on definitions, not your feelings?
It may be fair. It may not. It depends on
So
who the person is and
it
how I
might
feel
be
towards them.
fair. So you're saying
Hello?
it might be fair. There's a possible world where it would be fair to punish me for a crime I've never committed.
Yes, like if I don't like
That's
you,
fucking
Justin, I'd be like, that
crazy.
was fair.
That's wild.
Not
That's
really.
crazy.
Wow.
So if
Okay.
I decide
Don't
if
ever
I
be
see
a
you,
judge.
I know, right? If I see you in the street and I knife you, is that fair?
To me, no. To somebody that doesn't like me, sure.
So in a
That's what I'm
possible
saying,
world,
dude. It's
it would be
subjective,
fair
bro.
to knife you. That's wild. All right. Well, I guess we've
Yeah,
gone
it's
as far as
subjective.
I guess we've gone as far as we go. Thank you for admitting that your God is unfair, unjust, and that you have no objective means of
Okay.
judging the
Those
God in the
words
book.
don't. Those words don't
John,
appear, though,
did
Justin.
you have anything to add to that?
No, I think it's wild that you spent so much time arguing that your God doesn't have these qualities of goodness that so many people we speak to argue passionately for. It's an amazing inversion.
What does the word good mean?
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we can
Okay.
debate that, but it is also like 5 minutes to quitting time, and we've got about 20 minutes
Okay.
of super chats to read. We're scheduled for 6 to 9 o'clock, and we're already over. But do
Okay.
come back. You know my live schedule. Come back anytime, or come back and talk to John if you want, and we'll be more than happy to hear from you again.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. You have a good night.
All right. It's amazing the bullets they'll bite rather than just saying, it's not true.
Amazing. Yeah.
Wild.
I was like, am I really hearing him arguing that his God isn't fair or just? That's incredible. Oh, okay. That's a first.
I'm writing this down. It admits that God is not just, and I guess we'll worry about that later. So, friends, thank you so much for being here. I'm sorry we couldn't go late tonight. It's on me. This is my fault. John said he could go later. I can't. I've got to go see a butt doctor at 8 a.m. Because I'm an old man and I don't. There's not another time I could have it scheduled. So, unfortunately, I can't go late tonight. But we are going to read all of what's left of our super chats. So don't worry, we're not leaving any super chats on the board. So I think what we'll do, John, I'll pop them up on the screen and we can alternate reading them back and forth. I think there's still some questions in here for you. I tried to save some of the questions for the end that were in the list, so that we could get a thorough answer and not rush it between guests.
You mentioned that you had a question. I'm desperately curious.
I do.
About what your question was. Okay.
I was really curious. There is a bit that I've heard you do, and I would love for you to do it so that I can clip it and post it on my channel at some point. I love your bedtime story of the dirt man and the rib woman.
Oh yeah, I'll have to get that together. Yeah, I'll have to get that together. But yeah, it's just the Garden of Eden craziness, isn't it?
Yeah, it's wild. When I heard you retell the story with that framing, I couldn't stop myself. It was the funniest thing ever. It's on his TikTok if y'all need to see the clip.
Yeah, I'll probably have to get that together because it's not completely framed in my head. But yeah, yeah.
It was amazing, by the way. We'll work on that later sometime. But so I'll pop up some super chats. We'll go back and forth reading them. And then, friends, if you do have questions for John, now's a great time to send them in. There are links to his profiles and his website and book in the description of this video. Please do pay him a visit. And we'll have a blast reading some super chats. Now, Hayden says, you will know them by their yapping. And you know what? That and many other things.
Oh, Issa, lovely to see you. Thanks for the collab. It's great to see you here, John. Oh, thank you. And rock hard for Doug. Thank you, Issa. It's great to see you too.
And indentured cervix is a crazy name, by the way. Thank you for the super chat. It says, Justin challenges your Bible knowledge and John makes you search your heart. Could this be the perfect combo? These have no chance now. Much love. I gotta be fair, this has been a really fun combo. My only regret is we couldn't stay longer, but I'm sure we'll pair up again.
We'll get it together. Yeah, sure. Well, love this collab. Here's hoping for many more. I hope so too. Keep up the great work, guys. Thank you so much, Herculean.
And Real Jiffy says, gotta work. Have a good one, everyone. Hail Sagan. Well, thank you, Real Jiffy.
Sagan.
That has a good ring to it too.
For sure. Cliff Jamin, thank you for your donation. There you go.
Absolutely. And also from Guz, good to see you again. Ain't No Way Angel is coming up on YouTube. Well, that is the case.
Yeah. I decided to ban him from my channel. I'm not having him back because he came in accusing me of racism because I had made the claim that I think that, belief in God is not justified on the evidence. And he came in and started quoting, what percentage of African Americans believe in God? And am I calling African Americans dumb and therefore I'm racist? And I just thought, I can't platform that kind of stupidity because it actually damages, racism is a real thing to worry about. And
Mhm.
to have people like that crying wolf about racism where there clearly isn't any, I just thought I cannot enable that. So that particular investor will not be investing again in my live.
You can tell his investments fail because he's still crashing out on TikTok every day, and he has to keep changing his screen name so people don't know that it's him.
Did you hear him with Ian
Yeah.
recently?
Yeah.
That was brutal. And in fact, he came into me directly after that. So I got the sloppy seconds there. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty.
I think he's blocked on my channel already, so I don't even see him anymore. He's not even in there. But I think this one's yours.
There's too much dumb right there. Is that Liga? Has no one mentioned the typo on the board? Unjust.
Somebody did.
Sorry about that.
It was okay. I didn't notice it either. Somebody in the Discord did. So somebody, I don't know if Liga, if you notified the Discord, but at some point somebody in the Discord mentioned it, and I got it fixed. So what happened was in the original prompt, it said God in a sadist rather than God is a sadist. The S and N got mixed up on me, but what are you gonna do? Satan made my finger slip on the keyboard. I was blinded. Hunter Girl says, I'm so excited. I love both your channels. Well, thank you, Hunter Girl. Super appreciate that, friend.
And a Guitar Atheist, how is the Bible a truth book? We know evolution is true.
Yeah.
For sure.
But
sure.
It's a good platitude, right?
It's a good platitude. Yeah.
And John, thank you so much for the super chat. Says, I love your content. Watch you regularly. You also have a cool name, even though you spell it wrong. Oof. There might be a battle of the Johns at some point.
There might. And again, John, damn it, that was for John. I know. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry for spelling my name wrong. I am actually a Jonathan, but there is nobody who calls me that alive in the world currently. It was reserved specially for grandparents and people of that ilk, but sadly they are not around to use the name anymore, so nobody ever calls me that. And so happy to just be the shortened version.
How about when you were a kid, did they call you Johnny or Little Johnny?
No, I've never been a Johnny, always just John. Yeah.
Not bad. I like it. It's easy to remember too. When people are like, hey, which John? Oh, the John Jon. Oh, yeah, we know exactly the John you're talking about. Matthew, thank you for the super chat. It says, what an awesome team up and great to see you, John. Go ahead. Thank you so much, Matthew.
So much. And Guitar Atheist, again, if you don't know about evolution, maybe you need to try to educate yourself some more. Absolutely. I have no patience for people who don't know about evolution and still think they can come and argue against it. There are 10-year-olds who have read books written for children that explain the broad principles of evolution. My son understood it when he was that age. Maybe not in detail. He couldn't necessarily talk about, genetics and stuff, but he understood modification. He understood common descent. He understood how it basically works. So there's no excuse for an adult person to be engaging in this stuff without a basic grasp of this stuff.
Especially in the information age. Like we're living in it where all the information is on the internet. Like you can just go find it. You know what I mean?
It's obscene. Yeah, it's ludicrous.
Oh well, we're living at a wild time. Kip, thank you for the super chat. It says you both helped me change my life for the better. Thank you so very much. Keep them cooking. Hey, glad to hear it, Kip. That's I can't speak for John since I'm not John, but one of the reasons why I do this is because I think it does change people's lives for the better. If I didn't think I was helping people, I wouldn't be doing it.
100%. I say it every stream, and Kip is an absolutely wonderful human being. Is this Bryce?
Bryce Aroni.
Justin. Bryce Aroni even. Justin, tell John to raise his chair or lower his camera. You look like you're talking down to him. Oh, come on. John, new fan here. Have been binge watching you. Well, thank you very much. Next time I'll be up like that. Is that better? I'll just do this for the rest.
There
are
definitely some people in the audience that are really keen on aesthetics, and sometimes
Right.
they'll call me out on it. It's all right.
Fair.
Love you, Bryce Aroni. And Hank says that Meatball is raw in the middle, and that is the case. But I'll say this about Meatball. Meatball hasn't been on my show since 2024, and the first 2 times he was up, he came and like utterly crashed out. I saw a much more, believe it or not, much more reserved and much more calm Meatball in this showing. So I would at least say that I'm proud that he's made some progress. That's what I would say about Meatball.
And people do sometimes. Sometimes they get the crash outs out of their system and then they're ready for a conversation. I mean, I saw that happen with guitar with you. First couple of times he came in, he was all firing guns. And the last time you spoke to him, I mean, he wasn't making sense, but he was at least listening a bit. And I think that's why you gave him a bit more time, because he was calmed down a bit. And I think we should recognize that. It's absolutely fair. X Black Frames, if you have a problem with the fundamentalist in your religion, you have a problem with the fundamentalists of your religion, or the fundamentals, forgive me, of your religion. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And it's hard. I mean, we had this earlier today. You can't find the verses in the texts that tell you not to be a fundamentalist.
Right.
The way to not be a fundamentalist is to start selectively ignoring the bits you don't like. And whilst we're glad that sufficient number of people do that, it kind of philosophically doesn't really work. I remember Sam Harris saying that religious moderates offend faith and reason equally, and it stuck with me.
It's
really
true.
work.
You can't be progressive or non-fundamentalist unless you're willing to forego the sanctity of the text. But if you're willing to do that, well, there's a lot of positions you could get to. X Million, good to see you tonight, my friend. Thank you for the super. It says, Deuce Snore Us, Wreck. Am I late? Am I too late? Well, you're not too late, friend. Hopefully you caught some of it. The snorer was a little bit earlier in the live stream. Hopefully at least you caught our last 2 conversations. Good to see you.
And Scylla Taxabit, just a friendly hello to John and Justin and sending some love out to the world. Praise Doug, rock hard for Doug. Oh, hi.
Thank you, Silatax. Good to hear from your friend. Hope you're doing well. And Goob with another super that says, John, Justin, and Ian, please. Praise Doug. Well, listen, I think Ian would be amenable to it. We might have to schedule it for earlier in the day, but I don't think that'd be a problem for John, given his time zone. So we can probably schedule a live stream between John, Justin, and Ian. I think we can make that work.
I'd be up for that. I love Ian, so I'd completely be up for that. Miss Meg, why do theists think we are siding with Satan when you don't choose Jesus? Because they're stupid. Do they not know we don't believe in him either? It's a stupid statement. It is a stupid statement. It's one of the dumbest things that a believer can say to a non-believer. That the reason you're a non-believer is because you believe in the thing you don't believe in.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Not smart.
It happens when they hear things and they repeat it without having actually thought about the thing yet. Good question. Thank you for the super chat. It says, I wonder if Christianity started like the religion of Doug as a jest, and some sleep-deprived Greek guy took it seriously, and here we are. Well, I don't know if that's the case, but I do know this. The way the religion of Doug developed, or the religion of Puff the Magic Dragon, or any of the other fake deities, is that humans are so good at going somewhere and just drawing connections. We're pattern-seeking people. So if I can do it with some dumb rock, you can do it with the Magic Dragon, you can do it with a human being. There's no end. Especially if you have a book as large as the Hebrew Bible, there's nothing you can't take. I can hold this ball in my hand and go into the Hebrew Bible and find you verses about this ball, as long as I'm allowed to use the same hermeneutics that they used trying to say that it's about Jesus.
Yeah, right. Yeah, typology is wild. Finally, a free username. Loving that. The split of the screen and matching background colors makes it look like you two are in the same room, but John is mini me. Yeah, I know my place. I'll forever be the Robin to your Batman. I understand.
Despite what it looks like, John is actually my son. That's why we look so similar. He got a mother's genetics, which is why he's got glasses, but never mind all that. Guitar Atheist, thank you for the additional super chat. Says, it's hilarious. She had to literally sit there, and I know a ton of smart Christians, or I used to be an atheist. You know what? I want to be fair to the people that are nice, but sometimes I feel like they get nervous, they get on the stage, and words start falling out of the mouth, and they don't even know what they're saying necessarily. Words are just falling out, maybe even out of anxiety.
Yeah, it happens. Absolutely. And sometimes people just get into it without realizing, and then they're there. And like you say, they're in the moment, they have to perform, and all sorts of crazy stuff issues forth. Pat 907, here's $5, Justin. Rock hard for Doug, all day, every day. D Zone lives forever in my algorithms and will live forever in Christians' brains. That is for sure.
That might be the case. There's a lot of Christians that are upset that I exist. And Tim, thank you for the additional super chat. If the bread is his flesh and the wine is his blood, what is the cheese?
Oh no.
Oh no.
He went there.
It's the Famunda cheese, I presume. And you know what? It's best not to think about it. Maybe we shouldn't.
I'm stopping right now. Duskframe, question for you both. If you were a Greek style god, what would you be the god of? Don't say rocks, Justin. Doug would obviously be the head of this pantheon. I don't know. What would be the god of? I'm trying to think. I don't have a quick and pithy answer. I'd like to say something like I'd be the god of not taking life too seriously.
The god of jest.
Yeah.
Or merrymaking.
Merrymaking.
Okay. How that works out. My first instinct was I'd like to be the god of electricity. I'm not sure what my name would be. Maybe Voltron or something. But I would like to do that. The good part about being the god of electricity is there's like thousands of years where nobody knows what it is, and you can just like fuck with people. So, I mean, I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Cool. That would be fun. This one's yours, I think.
Bass Computer, I think it's Base Computer. Christianity is essentially Judaism for slaves, no? They get the son, not the father. Obedience is everything. Slave mentality through and through. I mean, you're not entirely wrong. It is clear in the Hebrew Bible that God treats the Israelites as slaves as well. It says so in Leviticus 25. But yeah, in the New Testament, Paul straight up tells you that you are slaves to Christ. You were once slaves to sin and flesh, and now you're slaves to Christ. So there's no getting around it. The God of this book, he just wants slaves. The free will be damned.
Absolutely. This is one of my favorite people. Just some random dude on YouTube. Amazing team up and content. Also, since believers like to say you actually do believe, and belief is a salvation requirement, does that mean that everyone is secretly saved? Right. I mean, I guess what they're saying in that instance then is when it's convenient for them, they're drawing a line between belief and what you say. And when it's convenient for them, that line magically disappears.
Yeah. It also begs the question, if we secretly believe, then why should we assume that they do believe? What if they secretly don't believe and they're just lying to us?
Oh, for sure. Anytime they roll out Romans 1 and start telling me, I mean, as Sean always says, informing us about the contents of our own minds, I say, well, if that's the rule, if the rule of this conversation now is that you get to tell me about what my internal mental states are, then it has to cut both ways. And then I can say, actually, you're not really a believer. You're just wanting to avail yourself of the benefits of community and faith and belief and being part of it all, but secretly you don't really believe a word of it. Got to cut both ways.
Absolutely. Guitar Atheist again, thank you for the super chat. Says, I'm so sick of this ignorant free will argument. You can't have free will if you don't have a choice. Agreed on every account, my friend.
Absolutely. And again from Guitar Atheist, education like this is why Iran is kicking our butt. Yeah, our educational system shows for itself.
It's rough. I don't know what it's like in other countries, but I know we need some improvement. Roy, thank you so much for the $2 super thanks. Super appreciate that, friend.
And Axe is back again. Hey, Axe, it's always great to see you. It's actually worse than that because it's more like you sent your son's friend, who also has never seen your car, to tell him about your car. This is your Ferrari. Then you punish your son for not believing in that car. Absolutely right. That's exactly right. I mean, I love this analogy, and we can keep polishing it because it makes complete sense. The secret Ferrari that the son doesn't believe in and has only heard about it fourth hand in accounts that weren't written down for several decades.
According to legend. Yeah, my great-great-grandmother spoke about it before she died. Atlas, thank you for the super chat. Says, I wish Christians like Buckaroni understood how ridiculous they sound when they go around in circles contradicting themselves. If I had hair, I'd have pulled it out at this point. Listen, I totally get it, Atlas. It's hard from our position too to feel like you've made ground in the conversation, only for them to go right back to where you thought you were already gone, like you already had a solution to. It's frustrating.
It's wild, and it makes you feel like you're wasting time, because what's the point of, if you're in a dialectic and the idea is to carefully sort of establish one point, and then that's like a toehold, and then you build on that point to the next point, and then afterwards they tell you that actually they've changed their mind and they don't accept the first point again, then the whole thing was just a waste of time. It's a bit silly. And Not a Robot, I Swear, another great name. So nice of callers to tell us that they aren't God.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
like when
didn't
they
know.
say, "Oh, I'm not judging. I'm just supporting the guy who does."
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm not pulling the trigger. I just gave the gun to the guy who was gonna pull the trigger. Tim, my friend, thank you for the additional super chat. Says your pastor reads you the parts he likes. We've read the parts he doesn't like, which is why we don't like your religion. Actually, seems to be the case. Most of the pastors I know, they intentionally avoid difficult passages, and that's one of the reasons why I knew I had to get out of Christianity. Was I was looking at this book saying, I can't teach this thing anymore as a pastor. It would be intellectually dishonest.
Oh, for sure. And Chris RPG, belief isn't a choice times 20. It's a choice ignorant.
Wait, what?
I don't understand that. Yeah,
Oh,
belief
I think
isn't a
he's
choice times 20.
saying the guest agreed that it
Oh.
isn't a choice and then said it
Oh, yeah.
was again.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I misunderstood for a moment as well. Yeah, exactly. It's ludicrous. And it really can be established reasonably. And when they establish it and they agree with you, and then they realize where it leads them in the conversation, that's when they back out of it. They go, actually, no, I didn't really mean that.
Now that I've painted myself in the corner, let me throw the brush at you. Okay.
Right. Yeah,
What?
exactly that.
Zeitgeist Omega, thank you for the super chat. For instance, Justin, just wanted to let you know that I bought your cheat sheet desk mat to help me in any future debates I may have. Well, thank you, Zeitgeist. I appreciate it. And for those who don't know, if you go to the gift shop on either of my YouTube pages, you'll find a desk mat which has some of my favorite cheat sheet goodies on it. And you can lay it out on your desk, and when you're doing debates or you're doing some online foruming or Redditing or whatever, you've got quick access to quite a few zingers that will help you, hopefully, in your debates.
That's such a great idea. Bryce Aroni again. Buckaroni thinks atheists should pray to be convinced. That's not biblical. You have to already believe before you pray. Mark 11:24, James 1:6-7. It's the chicken and the egg. That's why it's stupid. And that's right. It's ludicrous to say that you have to sort of believe yourself into belief, because the praying, if you don't believe, feels a bit stupid. Like, who are you talking to? Who do you think you're speaking to in that moment?
And Christians will tell you that, like, you need to do it anyways. Why? Why should we do it anyways? And Chris, thank you for the super chat. Friend says, caller, read the book. God spoke to me through dreams and visions. Help me understand. Praise Doug. Who doesn't need a fucking book? He's right there. You see him on the shelf. And that's agreed. Like, listen, if you're telling us the reason why we don't believe is because we didn't read the book hard enough or didn't pray hard enough, but the reason why you believe is because God revealed himself to you, well, what that means is that reading the book isn't really the thing that you need. What you need is that revelation from God, and God chose not to give us that revelation.
Yeah, I think that was adequately illustrated today. Tim, Yahweh's a thug. That's why everyone finds him in jail. Everyone finds God in jail. Yeah,
that's crazy. I never heard that.
Yeah, Tim is so reliable.
Tim's on point tonight with another one too. It says 7 bowls of Ratharoni. Oh, fair. Well, it is a San Francisco treat. Now apparently ancient Near Eastern treat. But yeah.
Tim dropped an absolute bomb in mine. I think it was last night. Said the Greek god of possibilities is Hypotheticles.
Oh, fuck. That's really good. I have not heard that.
That's great, huh? I hadn't heard it before as well. I'm keeping that shit right there.
That's good.
Brilliant.
That's good.
Duskframe. If humans are in the image of God and humans are apes, Is Yahweh a monkey god? Monkey,
Maybe.
I'm not sure.
Well,
An
at
ape.
least an ape.
An ape, yeah.
Yeah.
If it doesn't have a tail, it's not a monkey.
To be fair,
Yeah.
Dusk, the word image that you find in the Hebrew Bible is the same word where it talks about the children of Adam being made in his image. It just means that they have a visible likeness to him, which is why God is described as having anthropomorphic body parts just like humans. It's not because the Bible is being anthropomorphic, it's because the ancients envisioned a God that looked like humans, and that explains why humans look the way that humans look, but neither here nor there. New Zealand dude, good to see you, says, when a Christian says again, you know they are going to answer a question that wasn't asked again. And this is 100% on the point. They say again because they don't want to address your point. They want to reiterate their point.
Scribbles by Janice, can you please ask caller what he's on? I'd love to try something that can help a person escape reality and logic that effing hard. Right. Yeah, I have the same thought sometimes. I don't know if I'd want to try it. I'd certainly be curious about what it is, though. There's definitely a logic-free zone that arrives in the middle of some of these conversations, for sure.
Yeah, logic-free zone, I think, is probably the best way I would describe it. And Redwood Dragon, thank you for the super chat, says, hopping onto two of my favorites train, straight for Justin and John temporarily. Thank you for being great hosts. Well, thank you, Redwood, for supporting our work. It's because we've got supporters like you that we can even do this. So big W back to yourself.
For sure. And Gordon again, praise be Puff. May you be reflected in his scales.
We do need, I have to dive more into the Puff lore. I feel like there's a lot of memes that are waiting to be had.
It feels that way, doesn't it?
I might work on that. House 70, thank you for the $10 super chat, says, Fire Duo, I feel like I'm watching history in the making. Well, you might be, actually. Rock hard for 2 J's, Justin and John. Thank you, gentlemen. Well, thank you, House. I really appreciate being here. And I appreciate you supporting the work as always. You're in every live stream. So big W. Thank you for being here. And forget, if you don't already follow John, make sure you follow John.
Thank you so much. It's My Other Stuff says, whenever I hear about the problem with religious fundamentalism, I can't help but hear the mechanic voice in my head. Yep, here's your problem. You've got fundamentalism stuck in your belief system. Very good.
Absolutely. And Mo Tunes, thank you for the super chat, says, greetings, Justin, John, and everyone. Was compelled to join after reading the section heading of 1 Peter 2, the living stone and a chosen people. Exactly. Guys, I don't know how much to tell you. Everything in the Bible speaks to Doug. It's just the most true grounding of grounding that we can ever find.
That's so cool. Dee Main, thank you for your donation. There you go.
And also from Guitar Atheist, says, it doesn't seem like a justice God to me. And to be fair, at least the last caller agreed.
Yeah, it was wild. And again from Guitar, now I got a hardened heart. Isn't that convincing or convinced? Yeah.
We didn't even get around when the free will came up to mentioning that God could harden or soften anyone's heart as he sees fit, which is a whole nother can of worms. Grazi, thank you for your donation. I really appreciate it.
And Bryce Aroni again, Calvinism is the worst religion for a reason. Morality is irrelevant to a Calvinist. And Calvinism, might makes right. Calvinism is for sociopaths. I think that might makes right permeates all of this. It's not restricted just to Calvinism, but I do agree there's something uniquely horrible about the idea that God creates people knowing that they have no possibility of avoiding the hell that he's destined them for. That seems even more horrible than that he sets up this ridiculous condition where you have to find yourself convinced of improbable claims. At least you have some chance there.
Yeah. And to be fair to the Calvinists, a thorough reading of the Bible would lead you to Calvinism for sure.
Right.
Erzma, good to see you, buddy. Says, if you have to lie for your God, he sucks. Yes. That's why we have all these apologists up here trying to be the public defender of Yahweh. If Yahweh wasn't so wicked and evil or even non-existent, why would we need all these public defenders?
Absolutely, yeah. And this is how would we say this? Sing a soul. Ask someone to believe they can jump. If they say yes, ask them to jump. They jump. Ask someone to believe they can breathe underwater. If they say yes, ask them to try and breathe underwater. Beliefs aren't a choice. Absolutely, absolutely. And we're always coming up with examples like this, which clearly demonstrate that beliefs are not a choice. And we understand why they push back so hard on it, because they know on some level that the moral logic of their entire theology collapses once you realize this. And I sometimes say to people like, you need me to be bad for your God to be good. And the only way I get to be bad is if you are able to legitimately criminalize my lack of belief. And that's where this all comes from. And that's why we push back against it. And I want to hear more people using this line of argumentation, because one of the great things about it is you don't have to disprove a God. You can even grant that a load of this stuff is true. You can grant that Jesus was resurrected. You can grant all of this stuff. It's still morally wrong to condemn people for non-belief. So this position remains true even if Christianity is true. It's still immoral to condemn non-belief.
Absolutely fair point. And helping Mega deconstruct, good to see her, friend, says truth and tell us, I believe you mean, Christian brain rot syndrome is off the chart. I can stand him. You might mean can't stand him. There's quite a few people who don't like Truth and Tell Us, but I would say this. From our first showing to our secondary and tertiary showings, I think he calmed down a little bit and was giving a little bit of concessions. Our last conversation about his failures of understanding the Hebrew language is a little bit embarrassing, but I kind of expect that from somebody in his position. He learned how to use like an interlinear website, and now he thinks he knows Hebrew. He actually doesn't know anything about the language.
It's Dunning-Kruger-tastic.
Yeah.
Calvinism, for this from Dusk Frame again, Calvinism makes me sick. I much prefer Calvin and Hobbes. Yeah, me too.
Actually, I agree with that, yes. Godwin, good to see you, says, if I ask myself who would Justin watch, it would be John Cohen. Actually, I do watch John Cohen. And here it is, folks. Awesome team up. Thanks. Well, thank you, Godwin. I appreciate that. And it's funny because I've been pitching John on my channel for a while, and for a while people are like, well, when's the matchup? When's the matchup? I was like, I promise we're going to do it. I promise we're going to do it. I'm glad we actually got around to making it happen. We'll definitely try to make it happen a couple more times for sure. Or maybe I'll be able to join him on his channel sometime, but definitely glad to have him.
Thank you. Axehead Gaming, we are atheists. We leave a little dirt for the dirt man. Dirt man
Indeed.
and rib woman. Yeah.
And helping Mega with a follow-up, thank you. It says, I can't stand him. We knew that's what you meant. Rock hard for like simply wet for shared and praise Puff. Puff, puff, pass indeed.
And Niddy, great to see you, friend. Love you both. Cheers. Love you too. Niddy is awesome.
Thank you, Niddy. And Drew, good to see you, my friend. Says applause for both of you. Well, applause for you being here, Drew.
Absolutely. Grazzy, I haven't seen you in a long time, Justin. Go, Doug.
Well, thank you, Grazzy, for being here. As always, check back in every now and then, and you might hear something new. I know some of my talking points get old, but always come on back. I got new stuff coming all the time.
Is this your one? I can't remember.
Oh, sorry. I think it might be. Yeah, Chris. Hey,
yours.
Chris, my friend, thank you for the $20 super chat. Says, has there been any clinical studies done on prayer and it's failed? Results. There has. It'd be interesting in the study results. Great to see John with you. May Doug, who grounds reality, bless the reality of Puff the Magic Dragon. It is true. There have been many studies on prayer. In fact, if you go to the Deconstruction cheat sheet, there is a section under resources, and there is going to be a study. If I didn't already link it, I will. It looks like it's not linked currently. I will go ahead and link the prayer study. There's been a couple of them to the cheat sheet, and then we'll have that available to you. Yes, but there are many studies on it. In fact, if you Google one of the latest ones, let me see, study on prayer efficacy, you'll find probably the ones I was going to pull up. So Yeah, so here's one going over the results from the University of Connecticut. Science has no measure for the strength of prayer. Actually, that's probably not the right one. Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Probably the ones that are listed on PubMed are going to be the ones that we're interested in. Prayer and healing, a medical and scientific perspective on randomized controlled trials, and a bunch of others. John, you've probably heard of some of the recent studies as well. Do you have any on top of your head?
No. I mean, obviously the big one, the Templeton funded ones, and how catastrophic those results were. And the interesting thing was that, of course, predictably enough, there was no difference in the outcomes between the prayed for arm and the non-prayed for. But where there was a slight statistically significant difference was when people knew they were being prayed for, their outcomes were slightly less good, and this was amongst cardiac patients, post-operative cardiac patients in recovery. So the headline there was, if you're going to pray for someone, don't tell them, because the knowledge that they're being prayed for might be not great for their outcomes.
I think that's one I would put up. So I got the one by Templeton, and then also there was one conducted by Harvard in 2006, it looks like. I'll get both of those linked up on the Deconstruction cheat sheet tonight for those who have it, and then you'll be able to read the results of those studies as well. I think they're quite interesting.
Awesome. Oh, Upshot. Wonderful. Hey, friends, just wanted to toss my tithe in the hat. When will Christians learn confidence is quiet, insecurities are loud, God's not real, keep safe? Upshot
Yeah.
is a wonderful regular in my crew, and hopefully in yours too, Justin. But a wonderful presence, brilliant guy.
Upshot, thanks for being here, friend. And Klein, thank you for the $10 super chat. Says both of you are awesome at what you do. It never gets old. I love it. So glad you two got to live stream together I'm at my social club and put it on the TV for everyone to watch. Hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about, Klein.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you. and I agree. Watching John is an enjoyable event for all of us.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind. Brian Peck, tell the idiosyncratic Calvinist that the Bible doesn't say Trinity either. Boom. I was racking my brain while we were in that conversation there about what core fundamental concepts in the faith aren't mentioned by name, and that would be a really, really good one for sure.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them that come to mind, but it was one of those situations too where the conversation moved on so quickly, didn't even have time to address it. The guy's head was really spitting. Miko, my friend, great to see you tonight. Thank you for sending out 5 Deconstruction Zone gifted memberships. I really appreciate that, friend.
Miko's awesome as well. Doc Pleroma Nort, Calvinism 101. The author writes, the crime casts the culprit, fixes the verdict, then holds a trial to declare it just, responsibility without alternatives, judgment without suspense, courtroom as ceremony. That's excellent. What a perfect summation of that moral disaster.
Absolutely. It's a performance. It's theater, right? Not the Bible, Jason. Hey, good to see you again. Thank you for the super chat. It says a Calvinist who holds to predestination was chosen for heaven. Shocker. That hard work paid off. Which is crazy because, like, theoretically, if you're chosen for heaven, there's like nothing you couldn't do. You technically would end up there anyways.
Yeah, for sure. And Simeon Urchin says, in the first thunder, Doug the Eternal rose unbroken. Storms shattered, rivers fled, and even time bent its knee before his ancient unyielding might. You've got the best people. That's
fucking
amazing.
A. Good stuff, isn't
it? Brilliant.
Brian Peck, my friend, thank you for the super chat. Says God of doxastic volunteerism.
Involuntarism.
What's that mean?
So doxastic involuntarism is just the term for belief not being chosen. Doxastic means pertaining to belief. Involuntarism. God of doxastic involuntarism. But yeah, I guess it could be said the Bible God is the God of doxastic voluntarism, holding to the ridiculous idea that it is a choice.
Interesting. I learned some new words today, friends. I'm trying to rack my brain. What does that mean? What's that mean? But thank you for learning with me.
Is this me?
I think it might be.
Nezudev, I have a brother who is a fan of Wes Huff. I watch you all to learn how to counter. Sorry about that. Watch you all to learn how to counter the crazy things they say. Thanks for sharing your knowledge.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I would say this, Nez. Wes, I think, is doing his best. I don't think he's a bad guy, but it's pretty easy to see the holes in his apologetics, and that's because I used to do apologetics. Eternal Adam says the holy tunity. Justin and John, let's fucking go. Well, thank you, Eternal Adam. Really appreciate that, friend.
Mr. Morpheus, if people names are written in the book of life before the foundation of the world, you have no free will.
Yep.
Yep.
Nailed it. Mr. Morpheus, hope you're doing well, buddy. And Odelay says, I agree we can't choose what we believe, but where's the line on taking responsibility for belief? Are evolution deniers not choosing their denial? I don't think they're choosing their denial, though.
Yeah, they're not choosing their denial. They are not convinced that evolution is true. Now, you could say that there's some culpability for them in being closed-minded about getting educated. And that's where the moral culpability lies, is in the decisions you take about what you expose yourself to in terms of information and stuff like that. There are people who just have a terrible attitude and just want to stay where they are and are closed-minded about learning stuff. We can hold them, to a certain extent, morally culpable for being closed-minded and having a sucky attitude towards learning stuff. What we can't hold them culpable for is what they find persuasive. So they have no choice but to believe that evolution is just a myth, because that's what they have found convincing. But if they're responsible enough to want to get educated and broaden their horizons a bit, then they may be freed from that prison.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And Slug, I actually lost.
I lost it too. I couldn't remember either. You take this one.
Slug, my friend, said, I heard the horn of the Ferrari in a dream. Oh, well, Slug, as it turns out, I do have a malevolent agent that is going around deceiving people to test whether or not they do indeed believe or don't believe. So you can't even be sure that that's true, what happened in your dream.
Absolutely. And Benny says, as someone who lived in Thailand, which is 96% Buddhist, we can say that where we are born and the time period that decides what we believe in. Yeah, I think it's about an 80% predictive of what your beliefs are going to be as the situation you're born into. About 80% approximately. So most of the time, that is the biggest single predictor of what somebody's beliefs are going to be, which doesn't mean they can't change. It just means that's the most highly predictive factor.
And Screaming Silence, thank you for the super chat, says, Doctor, look, you're going to have to stop baiting. Patient, why? Doctor, because I'm trying to examine you. Hope all goes well with your appointment, Justin. Thank you, Screaming Silence. And Bertram, thank you for the galaxy. I'll try not to do anything that gets me arrested tomorrow during my exam.
Grazzy, praise Doug. Let's forget about the dead sky carcass. Justin, are you doing TikTok debates anymore?
We did it. We're doing it tonight. I do them three times a week. I'm on YouTube and TikTok simultaneously, my friend. You can watch on either platform. So the answer to the question is yes. And Carnage, thank you for the super chat, friend, says, I'd bet $5 that Truth and Tellus still thinks names are titles, and you would be 100% correct. Truth and Tellus, as far as we can tell, hasn't learned a whole lot on the Hebrew language or how the ancient Near East works, but he still has rhetoric. He's got that.
Got the rhetoric, for sure. Facing Opposition says, glad to see my two faves teaming up against Zombie Jesus.
Oof.
All day long. All day long. Yeah, I ran should we worship zombies as my title in the live the other day. I thought I'd get more up, Owen, but actually I didn't get much. I don't know, maybe it was just a
That's interesting. I love Julian the Heretic, what he says about Christians. He says, why should I be punished or abandoned by God because I didn't properly venerate a corpse?
It's harsh, but true.
Tyranny says, want to be Christian here. I weirdly enjoyed the show. Well, actually, that's okay. I used to be like an agnostic wannabe Christian, but after I left Christianity, And I loved watching the debates because they help you to hone in your thoughts, what you're thinking, and what you think might be true or not true.
For sure. Bill Franz says, I freeloaded for too long. Cheers. There you go. No more freeloading from Bill.
Thank you, Bill. And Kuma says most of today's guests gave me very creepy stranger danger vibes. That, I mean, yeah, that's why most people, if you're going to get sexually assaulted, it's going to happen in a church. But anyways, Justin's fucking rock and John's fucking dragon. Love it. Thank you so much, Kuma.
Thank you. PVG, nice to see, friend. You guys together are an unstoppable force like Goku and Vegeta. You have the same jawline, nose, forehead, and chin. Hail Puff and Doug and Sharon. True Trinity. Fair.
Thank you, P.
Fair.
And Atlanta Falcon, thank you for the super chat, says Christian here. Oh, good to hear from you. Love both your channels. Praying for both y'all, even though you don't think it means anything. Wishing you guys the best. Well, thank you, Falcon. I think that's a fair thing to say, as long as you're recognizing that your prayer for us isn't really all that meaningful. But thank you for being here and watching, and hopefully you're learning something.
Yeah, and I think I'm always ready to appreciate Christians who want to engage with these discussions in good faith. You know, it's nothing performative, it's nothing like that. That's fine. That's open-mindedness, and I think there's a lot of value to have in those kind of conversations. So that's cool. Bill Franz, again, thank you for your donation. There you go.
And Space Lord, good to see you, friend, says prayer is an act of doubt. If you trust your God, don't pray. Glad to see the team up. Well, I thought this a long time ago myself, and I talked to a good friend of mine a long time ago, and I was like, if it's true that God is real and he knows your heart, he knows what you want, he knows what you need, there's really no need for you to pray for it. And also, if God can't be changed, he can't change his mind, then praying isn't really the act of changing God's mind. He was going to do it whether you prayed or not. So prayer, as far as I can tell in Christianity, is a useless endeavor. I have no idea why people even pray, and Jesus tells you to pray specifically to receive things, but obviously that doesn't work either. So to me, it's a useless thing for Christians to engage in.
Craziness. Yeah, you're almost implying that God didn't get his plan quite right, and you're the one to set him correct. Like, whatever you were planning, God, it's not the best move. I know better. This is
Right.
what I'd like you to do, please. Not the Bible. Jason says, analogy so good, I named it Dharma's Ferrari.
I love it.
Boom.
Dahmer's Ferrari's good. Now we have to reuse it, now that it's known in the community. And Guitar Atheist says, besides our Constitution, we need a freedom of health and freedom of education. John Adams, we are not a Christian nation. Yeah, I mean, Jefferson seemed to agree, and there were others. And the further into Christian nationalism we go, the worse it's going to get. We need to fight it now. Don't wait for it to get bad. We got midterms coming up. Let's vote that shit out, hands down, and get rid of this.
100%. Chickenorama, Nora from the TikToks, that superchar about Yahweh being a monkey made me think that he is Super Saiyan Dragon Ball Z reference. Rock hard for Doug, simply wet for Sharon.
Indeed it is. And Chikawa says, hey John, good to see you. Seems I found a new person to give questions to as well as you, Baku. Well, thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Baku is a wonderful member of our community who always comes up with fantastic questions to challenge Sean and me. So I'm pleased to hear that. That's wonderful.
I love a good question.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is mine.
I think
I've lost
yours. Yeah,
it's mine again. Okay, Space Lord. The complications regarding choice are why, in some sense, psychology is the hardest science. It's hard to examine our own minds honestly. I think that is true. That is true. And psychology is really complex. But the argument about belief being a choice, you can approach it from a few different levels. If you just think about it from your own personal experience, you can tell that belief isn't a choice. We don't even need to get into the in my book, I get into the neuroscience of it and all sorts of interesting stuff that happens. Your brain evaluates whether you believe a proposition before you're even aware of whether you believe it. All of that processing happens in your brain across brain networks, which basically form a feeling of I am persuaded or a feeling of I'm not persuaded, and that's all like upstream of your own awareness of it. It's only after that processing is done that you become aware of it. So even without all that neuroscience, just our lived experience lets us know that you can't choose to believe something. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, today I'm going to start believing this thing that I currently don't find convincing. That's just not possible. It's not how belief works. And so yeah, it is complex and it is tricky, but we have to keep on going and pushing this idea out there.
Yeah. Next in line from our friend Twisted Scriptures. Good to see you, friend. Hope you're doing well. Hello, Thursday, Justin. Enjoyed last night's live. I sent you an email from my new account. Good to see you got a new email account. May have gone to spam. Well, I haven't checked today yet. I went to bed last night. I had to run errands today, and now I'm streaming again. Maybe tomorrow or Saturday I'll get around to checking the emails. It starts with the letter Q. Every time I listen, you dig deep to remove old toxic religion. You're helping so much. Well, thank you, Twisted. It really helps me to know that my work is going in the right direction when I hear from people like you. Let me know that it's actually moving people closer and closer to healing and to truth. So thank you for that.
It really does make a difference to hear these little messages of encouragement. Don't ever think they don't count. We read every one, and everyone just gives us a little boost, because sometimes it's hard to do this stuff. So it really does make a difference. And Alex says, thank you for your donation.
And we got a question from Gordon Loves Science. Thank you for the super chat. It says, is DC Debates the same as Deconstruction Zone? And it's not really. So Deconstruction Zone is just like my catch-all. I do my educational videos here. I've got my interviews here. I do response videos here. I have like shorts that I'll publish here. DC Debates I created as a standalone traditional YouTube channel that is just the debates. If all you care about is watching my face do debates, you can go to DC Debates. You'll get a traditional YouTube debate experience. If you like a lot of other stuff, you like watching interviews with people, if you like watching educational content, or even doing response videos, you'll find that on my main channel, Deconstruction Zone. I recognized a while ago that not everybody wants all of my content, and there are some people that just want debates. And so if that's all you want, go to DC Debates, you got it. If you want all the stuff, you're more than welcome to go to Deconstruction Zone, and you'll get the debates, and you'll also get my regular formatted content.
And Zeitgeist Omega says, Puff's fiery breath is the sun. This is definitely true. His clear eye is the moon. His reflecting scales, the stars. Good start to the legend, John. I'm in.
It's
I'm
pretty
loving
good,
that.
actually.
That's going in for sure. Thanks, Zeitgeist. Appreciate that. Brilliant.
And our last super chat, thank you so much for all the support, friends. From Sloshy Will says, hi guys, this offering plate is different. If you can't afford it, you don't have to feel guilty. And that is the case, friends. Tithing to either Puff or Doug is not compulsory. And every tithe matters. I'll never send an envelope to your house asking for a tithe like the Catholics do. I don't know if they do that over on your side of the pond, but when I was growing up, if you were part of a Catholic church, they would give you envelopes mailed to your home for the whole year, and they'd have your name on it and the date, and you can grab the envelope, put your money in it, and take it to the church. And they were assisting you to do your
so
donations.
helpful of them. Yeah.
I'll never do that.
No, for sure.
Well, John, thank you so much for joining me. We went like 45 minutes over, but we were having so much fun. And, I didn't want to pull the plug. Friends, if you haven't already went to John's channel to subscribe, it's linked in the description of this video. If you're watching on TikTok, he's actually on the screen down here. Go follow his profile on the screen. And I really appreciate you spending some time with me and joining me for another debate. And I'm sure we'll be able to collab in the future. And friends, thank you all for being here. John, anything you want to say before we close out?
Just a huge thank you. Thank you for making me feel so welcome, Justin. I'm really pleased that we managed to get this finally done after talking about it for ages and messaging. It's great. I've had so much fun. So thank you very much. And yeah, I appreciate you all.
Many, many thanks to you. Friends, we'll see you again soon.
Bye all.